us, but you never know, he may be detained.
Sure.
So with that at 6:02 p.m., I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021 meeting of the Cohasset School Committee. This otherwise in-person open meeting is being held virtually in accordance with Governor Baker's declaration of a state of emergency in this Commonwealth. However fleeting that state of emergency may be at this point. Would all committee members that are present please indicate so in roll call? Mrs. Caleri.
Present.
Mr. Kearney.
Present.
Mrs. Marr.
Present.
Mrs. St. Ange.
Present.
I am present, Craig McClellan. So all members are present as of 6:02 p.m. Moving right into the first agenda item is a special agenda item. We are going to briefly honor a very valued asset and member of the school committee who is as humble and modest as she is valued. So we will try and breeze through this as much as possible, as I know that's what her desire would be. But nevertheless, it's important that she gets the acknowledgement and recognition that she deserves. And so I wanted to invite, I won't call on anyone in alphabetical order, but I'd first like to invite members of the school committee to sort of express your appreciation for Ellen in your own words, if you'd like to briefly do so. It's not mandatory. And then I'll turn to the district leadership to say a few words of thanks to Ellen for her service.
And Mr. Chairman, before you begin, I
Yes.
believe Senator O'Connor is either in your waiting room or for whatever reason, he's not designated as a participant. So while the members are speaking, perhaps whoever your tech person is could solve that problem for us.
Yes, let's remedy that right now, Dr. Sullivan.
I will. I do not see him though as a.
He's an attendee.
Yep, there he is. He's got his hand raised in the attendee section.
Okay, I see it now. I'm promoting to panelist. Apologize, Senator O'Connor. The wonders of Zoom.
And
There we go.
and it was I neglected to welcome our esteemed state representative and senator, Representative Joe Machino and Senator Patrick O'Connor. Thank you so much for being here. We always appreciate your appearances, and I'm sorry for not for neglecting to mention that earlier, but I guess Senator O'Connor wasn't there just yet, so it was appropriate that I got the reminder. So with that, we were in the middle of honoring Mrs. Marr. Any members of the school committee that would like to express any sort of words of gratitude or appreciation? I will wait.
Yes,
until-
I would.
Yes, Mrs. Caleri.
Mrs. Marr has been, I mean, we all, I think, can agree that she has helped shepherd the district and the community through a few storms during her tenure and done so capably and so with such grace. And I really appreciate how much work, effort, thought, consideration, and dedication you've put into your role on the committee, Mrs. Marr. And I think if I can be half of the committee member that you were, we might be okay after you depart. But your institutional knowledge is certainly going to be difficult to catch up to. But thank you so much. Really, it is usually kind of a thankless position, but I want to say that I'm so grateful for all of your time, energy, and effort.
Thank you, Mrs. Caleri. Anyone else from the school committee?
Sure. Ellen, I'd like to thank you, and not only as a colleague, as a school committee member, but also as a parent. You've done a lot for our kids in the school system and for years to come. And we so appreciate that hard, tireless effort that you put in. And, you know, we're going to bring that energy and to the next years, and we're going to do some more good. So thanks again, and I appreciate your service.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Anyone else? I saw Mrs. St. Ange making a
Yes,
move earlier.
yeah, I made a move to unmute. Mrs. Marr, I just want to thank you for everything that you've done for the committee and for the town and for our schools. And also for me, I feel like this has been such a funny year. I have not really met with any of you in person ever. And mere weeks before the world shut down, when I ran into you at a Cohasset basketball game and you signed my papers so that I could be on the ballot. You said, good luck. I always sign so that anyone can get on the ballot and do their part. And then you were the one to welcome me in as the sitting chairperson at the time. And I just feel like Mrs. Colery said, your knowledge is just second to none. And so I hope it'll be okay when we all keep calling you when you're gone. But thank you for everything that you've done for everyone here in the district and for helping me in my first year.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. Sorry, I was getting a message from a member of the community who would also like me to read something. I'll do that in a moment. Actually, I'll do it right now because it was a former committee member and colleague of Mrs. Mars, Barbara Steffen. So she wants to say, her address, of course, is 260 Jerusalem. I just want to chime in and thank Ellen for her 6 years of service on the school committee as a Cohasset High School graduate and someone whose children went through the schools. She has incredible institutional knowledge about and pride in the Cohasset Public Schools. She has probably put in more work than any other school committee member ever on an hours per year basis. When she joined the school committee, the district didn't have a great handle on finances, and Ellen did an incredible job to sort out our records, our budget, and more. She also did a significant amount of financial benchmarking and financial modeling to ensure the fiscal health of the district. Many budgetary practices were also standardized and innovated, several of which were adapted by other departments in this town. Further, she was on 2 contract negotiation committees, which is no easy task. Shortly after her election to the school committee and her joining the negotiation subcommittee, a very contentious contract situation was resolved. The second time she was on that subcommittee, the contract was settled in advance of its expiration. Most people didn't even know it was a contract year. She also had a huge impact on our athletic department and has worked countless hours on behalf of our athletes. What impressed me the most was Ellen's desire to become educated on all topics related to schools, from special education to district policies and procedures. We were lucky to have such an informed and balanced voice in the school committee for these 6 often challenging years, and it was an honor to serve with someone so knowledgeable and invested in the success of our students. There's a note to me. Well said, Mrs. Steffen. I just want to say that in my 2 years of doing this, I have yet to encounter anyone who holds one of these volunteer elected positions in the town of Cohasset that shares or parallels Ellen's dedication. It's absolutely commendable. It's outstanding. It's amazing. And I don't know that everyone is aware of how dedicated Ellen is, but she attends nearly every major committee meeting. She has knowledge of basically every agenda, what's going to be discussed at upcoming meetings. She has her finger to the pulse of pretty much everything that's happening in town. Mrs. Steffen is absolutely correct in that she as certainly we will be losing an enormous asset in that she possesses budgetary knowledge that's really unmatched by anyone before or after this particular school committee, and hopefully we'll be able to build on the knowledge that she's brought to the table. Ellen is a very, very special member of this community, and we were lucky, very, very lucky to have her on the school committee. I think that her absence will be felt heavily. And as a small token of appreciation for Ellen's work and recognition of her 6 years of service, which having gone through 2 years, I don't know if I can even imagine having doing this for 6 years, but we had a plaque made for her. Now it's probably really difficult to read, so I'll read it. It says, presented to Ellen Mar, in recognition of her distinguished service to the Cohasset Public Schools. The town of Cohasset has immeasurably benefited from your selfless and unparalleled dedication to the education of its children, and it follows with your years of service. So, having said that, thank you so much, Ellen. We turn to the district leadership, who I'm sure is eager to share their thoughts on Ellen's service and the value that she brought to the school committee.
Yes, thank you, Chair McClellan. And all the words that were said about Ellen are absolutely accurate. I'll just say a few words, and then I'll invite Dr. Scollins, Sue, and Barbara to say anything you'd like to Ellen. But when I arrived here in Cohasset without much experience working at central office or with the school committee, I was struck immediately by Ellen's strong and respected voice. And I knew right away, this is someone that not only am I going to learn about how to do my job and how to work with the school committee, but I'm going to learn a lot about Cohasset. There are certain people that enter volunteer positions for all the right reasons, and Ellen is certainly one of them. She brings an absolute love for the kids of Cohasset, students of Cohasset, I mean, and the families of Cohasset, and Cohasset really, quite frankly, represents everything that makes Cohasset special, and sees very much a vision for Cohasset moving forward, and what we can build on to this already awesome town and great school system. So I will absolutely miss my time with Ellen. She's been a fabulous mentor to me. I know I speak for Superintendent Demas on that too. And I'll absolutely miss my conversations with you, but I have a feeling I'm going to continue them. So just expect some calls, Ellen. And thank you for everything you've done for me personally and for Cohasset Public Schools. Really, it's immeasurable. And so we're so grateful for everything you've done. Thank you, Ellen. And I know Dr. Scollins or Sue or Barbara, you had anything you wanted to say, you're welcome to.
I do, and excuse my voice, but Ellen, thank you so much for welcoming me to Cohasset last year. And I'm so impressed with everything you know and your history and your wisdom, because you and I talked about that the other day, but really going to miss our conversations, our impromptu conversations when you are so open with me and so kind and so respectful. And I'm really honored that I got to spend this time with you, and I hope that you still kind of hang out down in central office and visit, because I really enjoy it. Or maybe we'll just go out for coffee and we'll leave the building and I'll just go out for coffee. But I can't thank you enough. So thank you so much, Ellen.
Sue, I don't know if you want to.
I do. I want to thank Ellen personally and for the community. As my first year here as Director of Finance, she has certainly been a mentor, an ally, a sounding board. She has given me every answer that I was searching for. She's just a book of institutional knowledge that I've told her I'm going to truly miss her, and I'm going to be calling her all the time before my school committee meetings to get some guidance on what I should be doing and not doing. But she's been a great help to me. So thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Sue. And Barbara.
Yes, I just want to say, as you know, someone brand new to the district also this year, and as someone whose very job is about guiding children, I have to say, Ellen, I have always appreciated your very cogent questions and guidance, and really helping to kind of direct me in my presentations this year, and what the school committee really wants to know about children and how we're moving forward. And that's what it's really about. And I have always also really appreciated just your real supportive comments, and your just really kind of knowing that you're there and that you've been so complimentary, and it's just been really helpful in such a COVID year. So it has been a pleasure all year long, and I will miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. And Ellen, before we get to give you an opportunity to say anything, if you should so wish, we have one more little surprise for you, because you love surprises. And so before we actually get to their official spot in the agenda, I will turn it over to our state senator and state representative to present a little something.
Shall I go first? So Ellen, when I first learned that you were not running for re-election, you stepping down, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, really how much you've contributed over the years. And 6 years doesn't seem like a lot, but as a school committee member, it's 110% all the time. And every time I've interacted with you, every time we've been in front of the board, that's what you get. You've been I've heard all of these wonderful accolades, and I would just add, you've been a wonderful advocate for your school district and for your school committee, and just always raising the issues to myself and the senator that we need to be hearing, and always and with kindness, and always with context, and always with our students first and foremost. And so when we were invited to participate today, I didn't even ask what the date was. I was like, absolutely, we'll be there. And I did ask for just a few kind words to put on a citation for you. And I'm going to read it in a minute, but I did just want to say that really always a seasoned, steady hand, always sort of that kind leadership from the front, lead by example. You have left your mark on this district very much for the better. And I know that all of the students have benefited in their education tremendously, and they will throughout their life. And so it is my absolute honor to have created a citation for you, which I'll bring to you probably on Friday. At some point, I'll drop it off for you. But I just wanted to read what the sentence in particular was that was provided to me. So be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Ellen Mayer in recognition of 6 years of service to Cohasset community, during which you have demonstrated dedication, wisdom, integrity, passion, and kindness. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. And I have no doubts that there'll be continued public service because people like you don't just step away from this stuff. So you might have a little time out, but and it's given and signed this day by the the Speaker of the House, Ron Mariano, and myself as your state representative. So I will be sure to get this to you, and just want to thank you for all of your public service. Senator?
Thank you, Representative. Ellen, it's been an honor to be able to work with you over these past 6 years. Our terms kind of go hand in hand from the time I got into the Senate, and you've just been such a really important ally. The community and the school district was really going through, during your tenure, transitioning and challenging times. And I think that the town greatly benefited from your wealth of knowledge, not just about the school system, but about the town in general, and your strong support for students, student athletes, our educators. It's really second to none. And the community is going to have a huge loss on this committee, but really commend you for those years that you had. It was great. The time informally we were able to get together and discuss the school security grants, which we were able to get for the town. And it's one of those things that your fingerprints are on so many positive things in the Cohasset public school system. And it's truly people like you that make towns communities. I heard that slogan a while back before I got in the Senate, and I really loved it when I heard it, and it really exemplifies what you've done over these past 6 years. And we also in the Senate had a recognition read into the record. So you're forever part of the Massachusetts Senate and House Journal for your years of service. But it's along the same lines, verbiage as Joan read, for your 6 years of dedicated service. And nothing but the best wishes from all of us in the Massachusetts legislature for continued success in everything that you do, and just deep appreciation for everything you have done. So thank you, Ellen.
Thank you so much, Representative Machino and Senator O'Connor, for those kind remarks. Mrs. Marr, I don't know if you want to say anything. It's obviously not necessary, and I want to put you in a hard position if you don't want to, but you may want to after doing this for 6 years. Maybe just vent.
No venting. Wow. I'm kind of overwhelmed. This is more than what has been tradition, but as Mr. McClellan has said to me, it's a time for new traditions. And it's been an honor and a joy to serve on the Cohasset School Committee. I sat, as many of you know, I sat in the audience for a long time and really tried to understand how the district ran from a not from a parent perspective, but from someone who, a townsperson's perspective. And after 7 years, I decided to run. So I was a little slow, to get going. It's been 6 joyful, sad, hard, easy, challenging years. As Senator O'Connor alluded to, we've been through the ringer and come out on top. A lot of positive things have happened, not just because of me, but because of all of my current committee members and all of my past committee members. And with your indulgence, I just want to rattle off their names because they're very important people to Cohasset Public Schools and the the town of Cohasset, Gina Stino, Mary McGoldrick, Katie Dugan, Barbara Steffen, Amanda Zani, Jen Madden, have all been instrumental in what has happened in the district. And out of everything, and I just want to touch on one thing, out of everything that's been accomplished in the last 6 years, what I am most proud of is the process we went through and the selection of Dr. Patrick Sullivan as our superintendent of schools. And coming out of a very difficult time in a district that the headlines weren't positive, we embraced a process to vet an internal candidate with an outside firm. And when the results came in after the focus groups, after all of the input provided by staff, by community members, Dr. Sullivan checked every box that everybody was looking for. And it was a very, very proud moment. And I'm very grateful he accepted the position. And I'm hopeful that he'll stay in Cohasset for a very long time, because he's the best person for this job, as evidenced by how he led us through the pandemic in this past year. And the team he has assembled around him are top notch. And I have nothing but the best hopes for a very prosperous, academic, challenging environment for our staff and students going forward. Again, I'm kind of overwhelmed. I'm going to have to take down my psycho football youth pictures to put up these proclamations. And I'd like to thank all my current committee members as well. Thank you for all your support, all your kind words, and all your efforts. And you'll all be just fine without me, that's for sure. So thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. We'll give you a virtual round of applause, and we will quickly move into the next agenda item, which brings us to Representative Machino and Senator O'Connor's presentation, their formal presentation. So I turn it over to either one of you, whoever has worked out to start. Please do so. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Senator O'Connor, just so you know, I did mention to Representative Machino that I have the PowerPoint. I could display it at any point that you want me to, or if you'd like me to give you the power to do so, I can do that as well.
Dr. Sullivan, if you want to put it up, that'd be great.
Great.
And just as a formal introduction to this, it's really not, it's about 14 slides. It's nothing too much. It's just really kind of going over some of the numbers. As an introduction, both the House and the Senate have recently passed their budget. So we're kind of in the phase now where we're reconciling both the House and Senate versions of the budgets and trying to get one to the governor's desk. But to start, I really just wanted to say thank you to the administration, to the school committee, to the teachers, to the parents, to everybody who have gone through this past 14 months during this pandemic. You know, going into this, I think that there was a real concern about the unknown, but the way in which our school systems adapted to the challenges that COVID presented were second to none. And obviously some turbulent times during those 14 months, but generally so incredibly proud of the way that the communities have responded to this, the South Shore, how everyone really banded together. And I think that with the assistance from the state and local communities, neighbors helping neighbors, you know, we have a lot of people who have come out whole or as close to whole as possible, both people, families, and businesses. And so I think that we're really blessed and privileged and have such a great opportunity to really rebound significantly from the challenges that we've had economically and academically. And that's really what I wanted to lead in with this, is just a huge thank you to everyone who played such an important role during this really unprecedented period of time. And then with that, I'd hand it over to Representative Machino, who I thoroughly enjoy working with on a day-to-day basis to really deliver for the communities that we represent and be able to do a lot of really good things, as we're going to discuss in this brief PowerPoint.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you, Senator. And I just wanted to open with my gratitude as well to the superintendent, to the school committee, and to to all of the administrators and the teachers in the schools. You made it up on the fly. The state did not make it easy throughout the pandemic, and a lot of it was responsive. And I was so impressed, in particular, by Dr. Sullivan's steady leadership in terms of a responsiveness to the pandemic. And I have no doubts in my mind that the students in the Cohasset Public Schools have gotten an excellent education, the pandemic notwithstanding. It is, it's a pleasure to work with you. And, as the senator said, we're here to support you in every way. And we have a great partnership between my office and Pat's office. And, we're delighted to be here for you guys every step of the way. As just the first slide, just to jump right in, we thought we might do is just hit some of the budget highlights for you, and talk about Cohasset a little bit in particular. There's some district-wide budget, federal funding. We're just going to mention a few grants, and then a few local events that have happened, and a few pieces of legislation and guidance that we'll close out with. And then certainly, once we walk through it, we're happy to answer questions. So if you want to go to the next slide, Pat, I'll turn it over to you to kick us off with the budget overview.
Well, if you want to do it, Joan, it's the House ones first, so we can.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, so as you all know, the budget comes out from the governor and it comes to the House of Representatives first. It's a $47.7 billion budget. Just a few highlights that are relevant to schools into the district. We added about $219 million in Chapter 70, which is the same number as the Senate as well. They concurred in that. We thought it was important to mention the Student Opportunity Act, which we actually put into law last session, and actually it was in 2019. And that is the equitable funding law, is really meant to bring equity to all students across the state. And we had committed at that time to funding it through the last year's budget, and this year we're funding it at 1/6. So we are on pace for the 7 years to bring that to full funding, which was the original commitment that the legislature made with the governor's office. It was very important. We put aside, because of COVID, $40 million just reserve, because it was unclear what kinds of enrollments and how that was going to affect different schools in different parts of the state. So that money is there just to offset in case there's anything. There was $2.4 million increase to library funding. This is something that I actually advocate for every year. And, we put it onto this slide because there's such a strong partnership between our district schools and our district libraries. Looking ahead, there's $5 million in tourism funds. There's $10 million for offshore wind training. We recently passed the new the next generation climate roadmap, and there's a lot of money that will be coming for workforce development. And we've already started putting aside money that will come in through training programs, Think Tech, all of that, for looking ahead towards really having a workforce for that development, and for really embracing clean tech and wind in particular. We removed the sunset clause from the film tax credit. We thought we'd mention this the creative and sort of gig economy is down here. That's actually a really important one for our district, and we have a lot of people in the film industry here. We also put in $56 million for homeless shelter system, $50 million increase for the state parks. And there's also money that for it's DER, Division of Ecological Restoration, which is very important to Cohasset in particular, for removing dams and that sort of thing. So really looking ahead to preserving our environment. And then Also increasing a cap on the conservation land tax credit, which is another one that, given the history of conservation and environmental concerns that you've always been true to, we thought we'd just mention a few things that are in addition to the overall budget for schools. We thought we'd just mention those. If you want to go to the next slide, Patrick can talk a little bit about Cohasset.
Yeah, this is the Senate budget that we were able to just recently pass last week. Had a lot of the same elements of the House budget. I do want to make note that none of this is based off of any American Rescue Plan money. This is all tax dollars that have come in to the state through the Department of Revenue. And so all that's going to be separate, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But one of the things that I'm really proud of in both the House and the Senate budget, it really strengthens all of our safety net systems that we have in place, whether it be insurance or whether it be healthcare or individuals with disabilities, our veterans, our seniors, children who need early education and care. All of those investments go up in this budget. And it's really something that, I don't think that a lot of people anticipated when we went into the pandemic 14 months ago, that we would be talking about record investments into all of the key priority areas that we care about. Just some of the highlights from this: $16 million to convert child care independent tax deductions to refundable credits, $43 million in TAFDC and EAEDC benefits, an increase of 20%, $6 million grant program in the Senate budget for student social and emotional learning initiatives, $1 million for universal mental health screenings in our public schools, $150 million for the Massachusetts rental voucher program, and a $27 million increase to our nursing facility rates. So I think both, we wanted to put these on there to really show that the House and the Senate are both really investing into the programs that a lot of people in our communities use, and that when they use them, they just make our whole communities really a lot better. And then also some new initiatives that we think are going to be beneficial as a direct result, specifically social, emotional, and mental health screenings inside of our public schools coming out of the pandemic. We think that that's going to be money that's going to be well spent to hopefully, really be able to intervene early in some problems that children are apt to have after coming out of such an isolated and challenging period of time.
One of the conversations that we are always sure to have with House Ways and Means and Senate Ways and Means is municipal local aid. It is a true commitment on the legislature's part to maintain strong local aid and to increase it over time, to really support our districts in the way that the state really should be investing and supporting them. And that's a commitment, I think, that we've seen at least during our tenure as state rep and state senator. And it's something that both Pat and I advocate for every chance we get to make sure that they really understand and that commitment stays strong. You can see here on this slide that for Chapter 70, we did put in an increase, both House and Senate, of a 1% increase over the governor's original proposal for $2.7 million in Chapter 70 money coming to the school districts. I don't know if Pat mentioned it on the last slide, but we did fully fund our 75% of the circuit breaker, which is another important piece to our commitments really to the school districts, to be able to make sure that you're able to do what you need to do for your educational program, as well as your commitment to students who participate in your SPED program. And then the next slide. Oops. Well, you did skip one that just it was just the governor's proposal for the general fund, for the general local aid to the town. We did have a consistent number, Governor, House, Senate, of $565,000, which is a 1% increase over last year's budget. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and then both Representative Moschino and I were very fortunate to be able to identify a lot of local programming that's going on in the South Shore that's doing amazing stuff. and secure them some funding through both the House and the Senate budget. We were able to get South Shore SNAP, the Special Needs Athletic Partnership, that's run out of Hingham but open to children with disabilities all throughout the South Shore, that offer summer programming, very inclusive activities. It's a really great program. Both Representative Esquino and I love going to their annual cookouts and various different events and just hanging out with the kids. And then South Shore Peer Recovery, which is based out of Situate, but again, open to every resident of the South Shore, which goes hand in hand with really great programming for individuals who are in recovery and struggling with substance use disorder. Right now, we saw the highest rate that we've ever had in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts of opioid deaths in 2020. We knew that this was going to be an issue going into the pandemic, given the inability to quickly adapt to the needs and programming that individuals suffering with substance use disorder are going through. And so I think that these dollars in both of these, to be able to invest in programming for individuals with disabilities and to invest in programming and services for those who are in recovery, are going to be incredibly important parts of the puzzle as we continue to put together our communities, and especially those in our communities who are more vulnerable and need more assistance. And then one of the other things we were able to get is the Mass Marine Trades Association. This is something that we hear from quite frequently representing coastal communities, is that we need to increase the amount of money that's going into workforce development for marine trades. Right now, when you talk to people who own businesses inside of the marine trades, they are desperate for younger kids that, hopefully catch them inside of the high school or early in college, that they want to work in this field. It's a field that's definitely aging, and they're looking for a new generation, a next generation of individuals to work in the trade. And again, it's one of those things that it's not just creating a job, this is creating a livelihood, hopefully for a lot of young residents of the South Shore.
So the American Rescue Plan, I just wanted to start by saying that through the pandemic, the economic impacts to our local community businesses, statewide, to the workforce, have been pretty dramatic and pretty significant. And there are tranches of money that will be coming through the state. I think the slides that we've been allocated 4.5 billion, which seems like a lot of money, but I would just remind everybody that this is one-time infusion of money. It is a transformative, in some ways, this really has the opportunity to be a transformative investment in our state, in our economy, and in our communities. These are not monies that are used in our state operational budget at all. This is money that's coming from the federal government down into the local communities, into the state, responsive to the pandemic. There are, very detailed guidelines in terms of the kinds of things that we can use them for. But one of the things that I always feel incumbent to say, not to be negative, but we don't really know the impacts on the long-term and short-term impacts on our economy. And when we think about our own sort of local revenues and our own state revenues, I just think it is, we hope we'd do well, or well served. And I think you have such a tremendous town manager and your finance committee and your superintendent and school committees are very wise in terms of their approach to budgeting and forecasting. And I think we've done a great job, sort of as Massachusetts, in forecasting our budgets and just and thinking ahead to how we will use these one-time sort of. It's really an investment of a generation, if you will. In our economy. And we have some details in the next slide about Cohasset in particular, but I didn't know if you wanted to add anything, Senator, on this slide, just in terms of the breadth and the scope that will be here to really make sure that we have a sound economic recovery and to really invest not just at those highest levels, but in our, in our Main Street economies, in our small businesses, our nonprofits as well, and to support the municipalities and the services that they provide, to make sure that that they're continuing, the towns like Cohasset are continuing to run and continue to serve the public in the ways that they should.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Representative Mosquito said. I think this is a once in a generation type opportunity. I know that, people have complained about the amount of borrowing that the federal government's doing, but I think it is necessary. And one of the things that is great as part of this is that there's money directly that goes to the state, that $4.5 billion, and there's $3.5 billion that are going to go spread across to the 351 communities in Massachusetts. The town of Cohasset's going to get $843,000 directly from the federal government, and then the county, just because in some areas of the United States of America, county governments obviously play a much larger role. In here in Massachusetts, they don't. And so the county's gonna get $1.6 million. Our hope is that this is just a pass through and that money goes directly to the community as well. And then on top of that, the $4.5 billion that was discussed in the slide before, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for Cohasset to play big in being able to compete for grants that Representative Mosquito talked about. And I think that a lot of it is going to be focused towards school, towards mental health, towards recovery, towards infrastructure. There's going to be a lot of money, a lot of grant opportunities that are going to present itself pretty fast and furious. And we will keep up to date as best that we can to get all the information to you as these grants come out and as we believe that Cohasset will be able to really capitalize on them. But as far as direct aid, pretty significant, and none of this counts. The next slide that Representative Mosquito will go over is the ESSER money. None of this includes that. This is just separate one lump sums to the town of Cohasset that hopefully will be used, in predominantly one-time expenditures that are going to make a huge impact on the quality of life for folks in Cohasset.
And on the next slide, just recaps what you already know, that there was through the original CARES money, there was also ESSER money that came directly to the schools that were intended to really bolster your work in particular. And it was 53,000 came during the first round, 173,000 came during the second round, and then 396,000 is projected to come for the third round directly to the schools. And I think on the next slide, you'll see some of the grants that have come into the community for a funding recap towards Pat's comments. So.
Yeah, and as you can see, this was one of the things that the Baker administration really highlighted, and I love it. It's that there's just such a larger emphasis on taking taxpayer dollars and bringing it right back to the community in the forms of these grants. This is a small list of some of the things just in the past year that we've been able to work with the community, and the community's been able to work with the state in order to bring taxpayer dollars back to assist things like Head Start, a pilot program to create a website with helping businesses, Mass Board of Library Commissioners to send money directly to the Pratt Library, $330,000 for a brand new boat ramp, $10,000 for a sustainable materials program, $25,000 to the police department, municipal cybersecurity, where 550 employees of the community are going to get trained. This is a small sample size, and there's obviously large grants and small grants that go around, but in my opinion, and from what I've seen working in municipal government as well as Representative Mosquito being in municipal government, every dollar matters. And as much as we can provide and get back to the town, that's one of the top priorities that we have and that we really pride ourselves on doing.
Yeah. And then there was one special event we wanted to highlight. And this is a special one for both myself and Senator O'Connor on May 18th, as I'm sure the community of Cohasset knows. Kate's house, we joined for the ribbon cutting. And this was when we both were newly elected. It was Taffy North-Nagel came to us and both said, okay, here's what you need to know and here's what you need to do. And we're like, yes, ma'am. And so, it was our honor to support at every step of the way the Housing Authority in the completion of Kate's house, which is a brand new home for adults with disabilities. There's a desperate need for this kind of housing. There's a desperate need for senior housing and family housing, but in particular for adults with disabilities. And I'll let Pat speak for himself, but I know we were both very honored that the Housing Authority engaged us and that we were able to partner in supports for this every step of the way, and in particular to secure some additional funding. And that was really Senator O'Connor taking the lead on that. And I was only too happy to help catch on the other side, on the House side. So just kudos to the Housing Authority. If you haven't seen it, it's beautiful and much needed. And we just wanted to take a moment to highlight it here.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really amazing things going on in Cohasset, and it's really an honor to be able to be in this position to play a small part in being able to kind of tie everything together, connect the dots for folks in the community. But I'm always blown away by the amount of community participation in Cohasset and people just looking out for their neighbors and the fellow members of the community. It's really impressive. It's what makes Cohasset a marquee community. This one is specifically for Mr. Kearney, because this has been something that he has asked us to file in the past, and we have. So just to give an update on Senate Bill 376, which is the act relative to screening of prospective school employees for prior investigation into sexual abuse, child abuse or sexual misconduct. There's the summary of the bill. It was referred about a month ago to the Joint Committee on Education. We have not had a hearing date yet. Last session, this was reported favorably, but like with every piece of legislation that got reported favorably in the beginning of 2020, it got stuck in Ways and Means as the state transitioned to a complete response to COVID-19. And really all legislation, aside from really a select few, we're kind of stuck in the committee process. And our hope is that we can continue to move forward and add what I would consider sort of just an extra layer of protection for communities to be able to process when they're going through employee screening.
And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the DESE guidance that has come out recently that addresses, and I'm sure you've talked about this ad nauseum, how we're going to get through the end of the school year. Now that we're back finally in session for in-person teaching. I'm sure we don't have to really speak to this too much, since this is your subject matter and bread and butter, but we did just put up a few notable facts in terms of core mitigation strategies remain in place, except for outdoors masking, the summer programs moving forward. They're not issuing separate guidance, so you're encouraged to follow the current guidance for the in-person learning. And looking ahead to fall 2021 school reopening, districts will be required to be in person full-time, 5 days a week. And at that point, we anticipate all of the health and safety requirements will have been lifted by then. And certainly, we can always expect DESE to collaborate with the Department of Public Health to issue any additional recommendations that come up over the summer. I mean, that is a dialogue and a work collaboration at the state level that is always ongoing and will always be communicated out. So we just wanted to mention this, since it's such a present piece of your lives right now. We know you're fully well aware of it. We just want to take the opportunity to say it.
And then the last slide we have here is just something sort of non-education related, but something that did pop up during the pandemic was obviously a huge drop off in ridership numbers from the MBTA, both on the ferry and commuter rail. They put forward a forging ahead strategy, which called for the stoppage of all ferry service. Representative Moschino really played a huge role in this and getting all the stakeholders together from all different communities that were impacted by this and put together a plan. Some of the communities, including Cohasset, pitched in to hire a communications company to assist in delivering a message out there. And it really was sort of like a small political campaign inside of the pandemic really keep the commuter rail running and the ferry service open. We were successful in being able to do that. And now, given obviously ridership picking up a little bit, who knows realistically when ridership will get to pre-pandemic numbers. It'll probably take years realistically. But we have the service in place to meet that demand once it does resurface. And as you can see, the spring schedule was released on the 22nd of May, 80% pre-pandemic weekly service, 68 pre-pandemic weekend service for the ferry. And then the Greenbush provides more trains in the middle of the day and more consistent services overall. But generally a huge win for the South Shore because, the fear was that if they took away the ferry service, it was never going to come back. And I'm glad that we were able to all get together under Rep. Machino's leadership and really get this done. And that's all we got. Overall, I would say that we went into this pandemic thinking that this was going to be a budget that we would have to cut and really make really hard decisions. That didn't happen. One of the economists that came before us in the Ways and Means Committee hearing basically said what's happening in Massachusetts really defies economic logic. I truly believe that. There is obviously pain and inequity that has been caused and exposed by the pandemic, and these budgets address that. And at the same time, maintaining very steady, if not always looking towards investing more in our communities. And it may not be through the direct. I mean, you look at the budget going up, the Chapter 70, 1%. That's pretty much the status quo as far as what the state's been doing for the better part of 15 years since the Chapter 70 numbers, minus the years that we've obviously had downturn in the economy. But realistically, the amount of money that's coming back through grants and through other assistance that the state's able to provide, I truly believe is going to make a huge impact on the investments that the town needs to continue to move forward and put forward, as I said before, a marquee school system for the 21st century learning environment. So thank you for all the work that you do. We're only here to deliver the resources or some resources, and you're the one that implements it and gets this done. And the town's really lucky to have all of you, both in the administration and the school committee, doing that on a daily basis. And we appreciate the partnership that we have from all of you, from the local level up to Beacon Hill.
The only other thing I would add before I turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, is, as Pat was saying, obviously this is a slow process. Our economy has stayed strong and people are starting to go back to work. And I did talk to the T this past week, and they are seeing the ridership increasing slow and steady, which they weren't sure what to expect. And there will be an ongoing dialogue about what work looks like now and whether we do it, in the office part-time, who knows? And I think, we'll be here every step of the way to have that conversation to support the district. But I did also want to just acknowledge the fact that not everybody is back to work. There are still residents who are seeking unemployment, health insurance, what have you. And I just want to take the opportunity, since we're here with you live, that Senator O'Connor and I both are dedicated, and our top priority is constituent services. And so I just want to take this opportunity to say that out loud again. And, if people are thinking, there's a question that I had, or I don't know, should I, I've been waiting a long time, or it's frustrating, please call our offices. We are here to assist as we are able, especially if it's something around unemployment or health insurance or basic needs like raft or what have you. That's what we're here for. And you can call either one of us or both of us. As the senator said, we collaborate very closely in the support of the district and the residents. So I did just want to say that before we turn it back over. We're happy to answer questions if there's time on your agenda.
Thank you so much for all your time, Representative Moschino and Senator O'Connor, two legislative champions for Cohasset and its needs as a community as a whole, and also, of course, its school district. Thank you so much for all that you do for us. Any questions going in alphabetical order, Mrs. Cleary?
I don't have any questions, but want to thank you both for being here and for your flexibility in scheduling. I know we changed the date on you all and appreciate you accommodating that request. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Cleary. Mr. Kearney, any comments?
Yes, I'd also like to thank you for coming and seeing us and being very good to your constituents. Like you were saying, Representative Mosquito, your offices are really constituent friendly. It's been great to work with you guys, and I just have a couple of questions. One would be, we saw that Marshfield was given $100,000 grant for wellness. I was wondering, how do we get something like that? Is the first question. And then also too is we talking about a community of paid kindergarten, and that's something that came up this year. That was one of our community's members was really upset the fact that we continue to have to charge for kindergarten, and I was just wondering if there's any kind of help there. And it's also too is the governor has also issued some money for some summertime programs. Are we doing what we can to get these grants, or is there something else that we could do?
Yeah, I think I can take this. So the $100,000 to Marshfield was part of a local priority that I was able to secure in the Senate budget. That came with a $500,000 investment from the town of Marshfield. So basically, they had asked the state for partnership on that. And we had a meeting, and we were able to talk to some of the budget writers, both myself and Representative Mosquito, and that was something that we were able to secure. If that's something that the district wants to talk about in the future, please, we're all ears. We're always open to ideas, whether they're in the box or out of the box, as far as trying to give more programming and services to the kids in all the communities we represent. The second question on kindergarten, we've both tried to put back in place the kindergarten assistant grant program that was in place for about 15 years in the Commonwealth. During the housing crisis, it was taken back and it's never been put back in. And realistically, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's only there's not many school districts that were left that didn't receive money in that. Unfortunately, a lot of them are concentrated here on the South Shore. Some communities, Marshfield 2 years ago, Weymouth in this next upcoming fiscal year will offer free all-day K. Both of those, I was intricately involved in the Weymouth one. Took a lot of planning and a lot of effort and really a lot of space. We literally had to build a brand new middle school and have all the kindergartners going to be going there. As far as trying to really make it all logistically work, it is a huge undertaking, but there are some resources out there to answer your question as far as that goes. Not as much as there were before, but there are some ways to get money to Cohasset if that's something that is in the budget that you want to pursue. And then the third question, what was that again, Paul?
Sure, thank you. The after-school programs, just basically the summer programs to get the kids. There've been a lot of regression, especially with the special education students. So I was wondering how do we tap those resources?
Yes, that was a $70 million grant program the governor put together. I know that the applications, I think, were due in yesterday. They'll go through either 1, 2, or 3 rounds. They'll do as many rounds as it takes to get to really get all of that money out into communities. And I think that that's going to be the first of many. That was really focused specifically on remedial work and just trying to figure out how we can catch some of the academic lapses that kids might have prior to the next school year. And so all that's all competitive grants. And if the town of Cohasset put an application in, we're more than happy to support it with a letter and a phone call to the folks who decide on that. But if you didn't, that will not be the only opportunity. The $4.5 billion that we're about to invest into the state, all across the state, is going to have other grant programs specifically tailored towards public education, and the school districts will be very competitive.
And Paul, we did get a grant. We got that summer vacation and school vacation grant. Excuse my voice. So we have that money, and that's what's helping us for our summer program this year. So we did not apply for that other grant.
Excellent.
We already have
Excellent.
summer in place. Yeah.
Awesome.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think you're getting some Head Start money as well, right? Through the South Shore, right?
I think so.
Mhm.
Great.
Okay, Mr. Kearney, is that it?
That's it. And thank you again for your service, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Mrs. Marr, do you have any questions for the senator representative?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Thanks for the overview. It was very informative. It was mentioned that there's $6 million, there's going to be a $6 million grant program for student social emotional learning and $1 million mental health screening grant. As you know, we have Safe Harbor and Cohasset, which is a program that is grant funded. And my question is a technical one. Can a program that's grant funded apply for grants from other resources?
I don't know the answer to that, but I'll look into it. We'll both look into it and get back to you. That is very,
It's a great question.
that is a great question. I'm not sure. I would hope that they could, especially given the unique circumstances of what we're all going through, but I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially given that there was a market increase relative to opiate impacts in our district because of COVID. I think that's a wonderful partnership. And sometimes even if a grant, if you look at the eligibility, it will tell you who is eligible to file for grants, but you can also partner, right? And I think that's something that this administration looks very favorably on is local partnerships. So that's another way to consider it as well.
Okay, great, because Safe Harbor only goes up to the age of 18, and you know, I can just imagine with the amount of just out of kids home from college, you know, doing college remotely this past year, and kids just out of college struggling to find a job. It's a very vulnerable group, you know, for substance abuse. But Safe Harbor can only go up to the age of 18, and it would be good for the community to find a resource to help that, you know, early 20-something age group. All right, thank you. That was my only question. Thank you very much.
You just mentioned kids looking for jobs in the summer. I know that DCR is desperate for lifeguards. So if anyone's interested, now's the time to apply.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Mrs. Marr. Mrs. St. Ange, do you have any questions?
Now I'm tempted to go be a lifeguard this summer. But I just want to express my thanks. I think all of the questions that were asked were excellent. It's just great to see, I think, how well represented we are. And it's nice to see a breakdown of how that budget's going to support our community. So thank you both.
Okay. Thank you both so much for your time and for your willingness to be here and to present that information to us all. We are enormously appreciative of that. Thank you.
Chair McClellan, if I could just be remiss if I just didn't, from my view, express my
course,
thanks to the
sure.
senator and to Representative Machino for representing us so well throughout this very difficult time. I know I speak for superintendents in this region. We felt like our voice was being heard, and I know you were advocating for what was right, and we appreciate all your efforts and everything you did and everything you're able to help provide us. So thank you.
Thank you all. And thank you again, Ellen, for your years of service and for everybody for all you've done during the past 14 months. It really is, it's a team effort and you have a great team here.
Thank you for having us with you tonight. And Angela and Ellen, enjoy your last school committee meeting. I see that smile on your face.
Sorry.
Don't apologize. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item. We had pushed public comment down the lineup a little bit here, but we'll take public comment if there is any at this time. Public comment, of course, reserved for discussion points that are not related to agenda items. If your point of discussion is related to an agenda item, just please reserve that until we arrive at that point on the agenda. So I'll give that a second for people to utilize the Q&A feature to express any public comments they would like to share. Going once, going twice, and we will move over to the next agenda item, which is the superintendent's report. We'll turn the meeting over to our superintendent of schools, Dr. Patrick Sullivan. Dr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Chair McClellan. And actually, the first update I had, I don't have a tremendous amount of updates, but the first update I had was taken care of by Senator O'Connor, Representative Machino. I wanted to make sure the community knew about the recent changes, well, not really changes, the guidance that came out, which I had shared in a separate Connect Ed and also in my newsletter. But I don't know if the committee has any questions regarding what we're going to be doing for the rest of the year, which is pretty much staying status quo, which would also follow with summer programming, and then what guidance we have right now for the fall. with the little caveat that they're always looking at health considerations moving forward. So I don't know if the committee has any questions about that. But that was going to be my first update. So that kind of quickened that one. Any questions?
Everyone can just join in if they want to ask any questions. Otherwise, Dr. Sullivan, just keep on,
Okay.
keep on
Yeah, it's
trucking.
pretty straightforward. Ellen?
So if there's no guidance on summer learning, what do you do? Go back regular? Or do you continue with where
No,
you?
the
are
guidance is to continue with the safety implementations we have right now,
right now?
right
Okay.
in place, yes. And then in the fall, it appears there's going to be a relaxing of distancing guidelines, and right now it's at all safety. So we'll just have to wait and see if that changes, but that is where we're kind of set to take off from next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I did want to update on what was really some joyous events for our seniors. I put together just some pictures here, as I like to do. Let me just present this. So just as you know, we were very happy to celebrate the class of 2021, who obviously had a atypical year, to say the least. But they're a great group of kids. They're off to wonderful things. And I first off want to thank all the parents the teachers who helped them, of course, and prepared them throughout their time here in Cohasset to really be ready to take off to do some wonderful things in their future. Very much thankful for that. But the parents for doing a lot of recognizing of our students over the last few weeks. You may have seen this banner that was right outside of our facility here at the middle and the high school. Of course, these incredible signs showing how much we care about our students. And then really put together by parents and Miss Froyo and some others who we really think have started a new tradition here in Cohasset of acknowledging our seniors. It's just wonderful to see and went so well up in our common. So thank you all for acknowledging them in that way. And then we were able to celebrate a prom, a full prom, which is wonderful. We had a red carpet event that there were 3 places in the community that students were bused to. We had them broken down into 3 buses so they could get wonderful pictures. I have to give my total thanks to Mrs. Moriarty and Mrs. Berkowitz, the senior class advisors, for all their yeoman's efforts in this, and everybody who played a part. Doc Rich and Mary Beth Reardon for doing the emceeing of the red carpet. Here is the main red carpet event, which was at our sailing club. Thank you to the sailing club. It really was a community effort, and it was very much run by families of these students. Here's just another picture of one of the groupings that were at the sailing club. And then I didn't take this because the last thing they want is the superintendent at a prom, but this is a picture of them dancing and having a great time here on Alumni Field. It was wonderful, very authentic, and from all reports, the students had a fantastic time. It was really great. And then, of course, last Thursday, we were able to joyously celebrate our graduation. I did take this photo as I was up on the stage. I think I see Mr. Welsh there too. Thank you for attending, Mr. Welsh. But here you have the class of 2021 coming in full regalia. It was a wonderful event. I was so encouraged by the optimism in the students' speeches. They were very authentic. And I thought just shed such a great light on what I think is a generation that's going to make a huge amount of difference in our world. And certainly the Cohasset students will be leaders in that. And a lot of these pictures I'm about to show are taken by Robin Chan, who is from the Mariner. So I want to make sure I give that credit. Other than the one I just showed you, I think they're all from him. So they're beautiful pictures. And this is just some of our graduates listening to their fellow graduates speak, acknowledging their accomplishments, laughing. There was a great sense of unity in this group. And you get the sense that they really not only respected the achievements they've all been able to achieve in this time period, but they really like each other, which is also very apparent in this very supportive group. more people celebrating. I love this one. This is Mrs. Norton with her daughter Piper. As we do, we allow our staff to acknowledge it when they have a diploma. It's wonderful. And this is a good moment. You get a good picture too. I hope they take this and frame it. And we also were able to acknowledge some of our staff who retired. This is Julia DeWall, fabulous kindergarten teacher, has made such an impact on so many students. And she was able to receive acknowledgement from her son, John DeWall, who was our music teacher at Deer Hill. So that was a wonderful moment. But we also recognized Mark Craig, who was at a longtime art faculty at our high school. Julia, I mentioned Cynthia Gordon, wonderful longtime social studies teacher at the middle school. Lucia Grande, who was a cafeteria food facilities worker. Mark Kelly, obviously our facilities director. Brenda Regan and Heidi Salerno. So it was wonderful. And then we were able to also acknowledge our own Ellen Marr for her service too. So it was a great, I know she didn't want it, but we did it. So it was a really nice moment there as well. Again, just some more great pictures of students enjoying the moment, looking at the diplomas. Principal Scott did a phenomenal job. I can't say enough for the graduation that he ran. His comments to the students were so personalized and beautiful and eloquent, and was very proud that he's a principal of our high school, our flagship school. This is Michael Powers, who's the class president, did a fabulous job. Kate Cunning, one of the best valedictorian speeches I've ever heard, and I've been to many graduations. Very authentic and a true testament to the wonderful student body we have here. This is Emma Humphrey, who did a great rendition of the national anthem. Very difficult because of the echo, I can attest to that, but she did a tremendous job. This is Carolina Simmons, excuse me for that. She was our class orator, did a great job, really captured the spirit of this class in her speech. This is Colin Slater, who did the Pledge of Allegiance admirably. And then, of course, you have Principal Scott with his closing remarks. Just a wonderful all-around event, and had a real authentic flair on our own football field. Just some lasting pictures here. That's the whole class, and I love this one. This says it all. What a great picture too. I don't know how we did this, but captured a fabulous moment. Some high-thrown hats too, I would say. And then I just wanted to update as we move into Pride Month that our crosswalks are adorned in Pride colors, and we're really hoping to celebrate diversity, a Pride Month, of course, and then moving towards Juneteenth, towards the end of the school year. So that's it. I just wanted to share that and make sure that the committee was up to date on those wonderful moments, and it was really an honor to be a part of it. And then Chair McClellan, unless anybody has any discussion on that, I'll move on to another point. I don't know.
Yep, I think that's, yep, keep moving. That's good.
Okay. So I just wanted to mention really piggybacking off of where we were at our last school committee meeting. If you remember, the committee approved a contingent to our ESSER 3 funding, which we right now have, the application is open for it, so we have to apply for it. You saw it in the senator and representative's presentation. And then also looking at ESSER 2, what could we do with ESSER 2 to hopefully create a situation where we could provide kindergarten families with more of a refund? And you had approved us to investigate this and to provide up to a $500 refund. Well, we were able to look at ESSER 2 with some good work from Susan Owen, and I am happy to report that based on what you provided me for guidance, we're able to provide that $500 refund, and that will be in a very near to come warrant. So that is set to happen. And I also want to make a correction. A question was asked by a community member about the number of kindergarten students full time. And I think we said 110. It actually is 98. I want everyone to know the 110 number came from our original list of people who had subscribed to kindergarten. and it ended up being 98. And that number, that 110 number actually plays out because right now we have 112 first graders registered. So that's exactly where that came from. But that was just, we just didn't know at the time the question was asked, and we gave our best shot at it. But it is 98, just to be very clear. So I just wanted the committee to hear that and the community to hear that, so we could be fully transparent with that information.
And along those same lines, while we're correcting things about last meeting, Dr. Sullivan, I think I mentioned that the reimbursement for K tuition last year was $500 for the 1920 families, 2019, 2020 families. And that was the information I was outfitted with at the time. So as we continued our investigation of what reimbursement is possible, I think that, you know, Mrs. Owen was able to show me that the amount was actually, it was not $500, it was $980 that was reimbursed the kindergarten families. So, and that was an innocuous sort of mistake. I think our own Mrs. St. Ange was a kindergarten family that year. So that was obviously done in her, that misrepresentation was made in her, innocent misrepresentation was made in her presence. So I just, that's the information I had. So, but it was $980. So I just want to make that clear to everyone because I wanted to correct that while you were correcting the enrollment figures. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that is fine. So I that is actually it for my report, unless the committee had any other questions or thoughts around anything with the kindergarten tuition or anything else that we mentioned. We'll move
I just
on
want to say the sidewalks look great and I'm so excited. Thank you.
And I have a couple of other, I have guests, obviously, I want to introduce and get to them.
Yes.
But thank you, Ashley. We appreciate that. And appreciate the work that families put into that. Again, it's an important show of support for Pride Month. Chair McClellan, shall I move on to introduce our guests?
Please do. Let's go.
Well, actually, so I'll start with Mike Welsh, and all of you have met Mike presenting previously. He's an exceptional social studies teacher at the high school. But what you may not know, but some of you probably do, Mike and Chris Lovisi run our Model UN program, which has been a very successful program over the years. I know the last 2 years they've been able to keep it going alternatively, really engaging, interesting ways. But I know we're all anxious to get back to a more normal routine with it. So Mike is here to present about some thoughts on the Model UN for next year and to gain permission for some of the things that they want to do. Mike, you want me to give you power to share? Or you want me to share what you presented?
No, that's okay. I was just going to ask it verbally. I think I shared some of the information with you earlier about the actual conferences. Usually, we actually have to sign up for conferences about a year early. So conferences for next year, we're not sure which one we're going to attend, but there's one at Harvard that we quite often attend in January. There's another one in New York that we quite often attend in March. And, you know, with the year being the way that it is, we thought it would be prudent to ask for some sense of approval prior to having students register and getting, maybe collecting funds for those trips. So I know it's very early in the year and I know there's some questions still out there, but we were wondering if we could get some sense of approval or get your ideas on kind of moving forward with starting to get ready for next year. So I don't know if anybody had any questions or.
Does anyone have any for Mr. Welch about the Model United Nations request? Mrs. Cleary?
From my perspective, I think this is such an important program and I'm happy that we're sort of re-entering some sense of normalcy and plan to participate again. I just wonder, you said that we need to commit about a year ahead of time?
We don't necessarily need to, but it's usually in our best interest too, because slots get taken. Usually at this point in the year, we can guarantee the number of students who want to go, we can get them into the conference. And we also like to get a sense, we do give based upon who the students are, which conference we're going to go to. And we just didn't even want to really start the process too much until then. But usually it's best if we start now because we're not sure if we can get the slots as the year goes on. Like particularly after the summer, we we can't guarantee slots for students.
I would support. Sorry, that sounded terrible. I would support getting started.
I think it carried over. Mrs. Cleary, thank you. Mr. Kieran, do you have any comments or questions for Mr. Welch with Small UN?
No, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. I think this is great. Full support.
Oh, thank you.
Mrs. Marr?
One quick question, Mr. Welch. If you're able to get into both trips, one at Harvard and then one in New York, would it be spread out across more students, or would individual students maybe have the opportunity to attend both?
We usually, in the past, it's dependent upon student interests. So we're willing to kind of go with whatever students really desire to make sure that we can accommodate the most students possible. Usually we don't have students doing the same one, two of them in the same year. We've mixed it up a little bit, but really we try to make it as driven by the students' interest as we possibly can. And also we have, one of them tends to be a little bit better for beginners and one of them tends to be a little bit better for more experience. So we try to adjust it in that way.
Thank you. It was always a joy to hear the students when they came back from, these experiences, talk about what it was like and what they went through. So I'm impressed.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Hopefully it'll be a good year.
Me too. They deserve it. You deserve it.
Absolutely. Mrs. St. Ange, do you have any questions or comments about Small UN?
I just
I'm
want
hungry.
to offer my
Yeah.
support.
I'm still full.
Paul, you're not muted. I just think it's an awesome opportunity. Great to be able to plan ahead, and seeing as it's a group of kids who have been eligible for the vaccine already, like why not plan ahead? It's going to be hopefully safe to go, and you guys can have a great time doing it. So thank you for leading that.
Thank you, Ms. St. Ange. Thank you, Mr. Welch. I as a Small UN alum, I'm almost biased, but I do always have the question with any of these trips, whether it's Small UN or whether it's a European trip. I'm always interested in, and I'm sure that you have properly, you have a properly outlined plan, and you've done this isn't this is your first rodeo, so to speak. But what is the supervision level like, especially in the hotels where it's a co-ed conference? I mean, what's the moderator or chaperone ratio to students, and how is that set up, and how they how they monitored in these overnight trips, and especially in a more foreign city like not foreign, but not foreign as in it's like Paris, but foreign in terms of not Boston, like New York City. Is there how do we enforce curfews, things like that? Can you just sort of talk a bit about the safety precautions that are taken for the students when they're away?
Certainly. So usually, so it would always be me, Mr. Levisi, we always make sure there's two adults there to make sure that we can cover as much as possible. The numbers vary, but we don't always have the same numbers of student to teacher ratio, but we try to keep it at, I think, I don't want to say definitely, but it's usually low teens is what the conferences actually require. I can certainly look that up for you. We do make sure that students are in at a certain time into their rooms just as checks. Also, both conferences have they have people in the hallways in the evening double checking things and making sure that everything's okay. There is a dance where the chaperones really aren't even allowed to attend, but they make sure that there's chaperones there. So we check on them. There is some freedom for lunch and things like that, but we always have the students check in with us, tell us where they're going to go. And usually they're so busy, if you attended it yourself, they're so busy that usually the conferences keep them busy pretty late into the night. So we really don't have too many issues in terms of the students remaining busy and being on task and doing the right things. I think that answered, I hope that answered your question.
It did, yes. Okay, all right. I just want to make sure, obviously, that especially in New York City, our students are obviously accounted for, and I don't doubt that you do that. I just and I do remember being on them and being given a bit more freedom. Maybe perhaps I should have been given during those things. That was part of the fun, but just want to make sure that's at the forefront of your concerns, which I'm sure it is as any sort of teacher.
We certainly do the best we can. I can promise you that.
Absolutely. And I do want to note while you're here, not related to Molly Wen, but I was in one of the several, walkthroughs of the schools. I had the privilege of watching you instruct your advanced placement econ students. And it was wonderful to watch. You're obviously a very gifted practitioner, and we're very lucky to have you. You are someone that clearly engages the students, and they are, I loved how you got them to you encourage them to discuss things openly, to solve problems, discuss amongst each other. It was really nice to watch. I could have stood in there the entire time, and the time would have flown by. And I think that's the sign of a very, very gifted educator. So thank you for all that you do for the kids as well.
Well, thank you for the kind words.
Of course, they're well deserved, and I think the students have. I think the students have made their accolades about you clear as well. I think our student advisors have actually mentioned you by name as well in some of their updates. So thank you for all that you do, Mr. Welch. Any other questions for Mr. Welch? Okay, well, do we want to give a formal vote to approve? I think, I guess we don't really have you mentioned, Mr. Welch, you don't have a defined plan, obviously, which one you're going to attend, but maybe you want some school committee approval for, the authority to attend one or both of the conferences you mentioned at Harvard and NYC.
Yeah, we would like some type of approval, and I can certainly then, when everything's all buttoned up, I can certainly share that with Mr. Sullivan, with Dr. Sullivan, and he can give that information to you. And if you want me to come back again, whatever we need to do.
Okay. All right. Well, is there a motion on the floor to approve the Molly United Nations attending the Harvard conference and/or the conference in New York City?
So
Yep,
moved.
here. Motion made by Mrs. St. Ange. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Caleri. All in favor? Mrs. Caleri.
Aye.
Mr. Kearney.
Aye.
Mrs. Marr.
Aye.
Mrs. St. Ange.
Aye.
Aye. Craig McClellan. That motion unanimously carries Mr. Welch. So you have the school committee's approval to do so. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much for your support, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience waiting for your turn, Mike.
Oh, it all seemed like they were very worthwhile things.
Okay. Have a great night. Thanks for all you do.
You as well. Thank you all.
Okay, Chair McClellan, if I can move on, that's okay. So next up, we have Lisa Radden, who again is our director. I know you've all met her, but just for the public, director of technology and digital learning. One of the great things, I can't say there were a tremendous amount of great things that came out of the pandemic, but one of them certainly is our new position of director of technology and digital learning. Lisa has done a wonderful job this year, kind of hitting the ground running. That's an understatement. She sort of had to with everything we were doing. And one of our major tasks for Lisa was to work and reinvigorate our digital learning committee, which she's done a great job on, and has also led a fabulous initiative that is helping us pilot technology throughout the district. And I asked Lisa to also add a slide that just talks a bit about some of her, really the major points that she was trying to hit in her first year, because I think it's important that you all get a sense for not only what Lisa's done with the digital learning committee, but her real broad impact on the school district. So Lisa, I gave you the power. So if you
thank you.
want to share, you can take it away.
Thank you. Thanks for that intro. Appreciate it. And thank you everyone for the opportunity tonight. All right. So as Dr. Sullivan said, I'll share with you a bit about what we've been up to with the Digital Learning Committee, as well as a number of other technology-related updates that I've been working on. So the Digital Learning Committee, we kicked off in January, and one of our first deliverables was coming up with a mission statement. So we had three main deliverables for this year. In our mission statement, we kind of crafted it at the beginning, and then we actually revisited it recently, but we feel good about this. The mission of the Digital Learning Committee is to evaluate, advise, and drive the integration of technology into the learning environment, to transform instruction and learning in ways that support all students in achieving digital literacy skills and knowledge. So we're taking this mission forward. And one of our other deliverables was the Innovative Classrooms pilot proposal, which really took up a large chunk of our time as a team and my time during that spring season. So from February to April, we were working quite a bit on that. And then the last 2 months, we've been reviewing the technology plan. So Cohasset Public Schools has a tech plan from 2016 to 2021. And so we've been taking a look at that. And I'm going to go into each of these two in more detail on the slides. So who we are, if you go through the list, there's, it's a wonderful cross section of staff across the district. We have IT represented, IT specialists, library, classroom teachers, leadership, special education. So just a wonderful group of staff. And I can't thank them enough for being so welcoming, so open-minded, and really so collaborative throughout this process, throughout this year, really. And they've really kind of been my eyes and ears as well. So I asked a lot of questions and continue to kind of help me, understand the learning environment here and the role of technology, and get their thoughts and participation in that. So the Innovative Classrooms pilot was presented as an opportunity to evaluate our audiovisual technologies in the classrooms. So things like projectors and screens and interactive displays. But really, we kind of broadened it as a team to look at establishing a model for future classrooms at CPS. And so you have to ask, which technologies, in the most obvious questions, which technology should we choose to try, but why? And the why really involves asking, what problems do we want to address and what questions do we have? And then, we've had this plunge into technology in the last year. So what have we learned from that experience that we might want to take forward to inform this model? So the approach we took was really from February to April, researching ed tech trends, other school models, products, just a lot of research and conversation around that. We ran a number of workshops and focus groups. So I called it the Future Classroom Design Thinking Workshop. So the Digital Learning Committee, I ran that with them, and we kind of threw up a lot of ideas, brainstormed what have we learned, what problems, questions do we have, and how might we solve this? And then took that to staff and students as well, including leadership and the ITS team, to talk about those same questions and get their ideas. I also had some staff surveys that were about asking staff after they went through the PDs, what are some top technology improvements that you would like to see next year? And then we kind of packaged that all together, and I pitched that to Capitol in, I think, mid to late March. From May to June then, capital budget was approved, which is wonderful. And thank you to Sue Owen again for all her work in getting that done and approved. And so we kicked off the pilot with creating this tech trade show. And again, I'll show you more details on this. This is probably kind of a packed slide of words. But we got some demos in, some equipment in during a half PD day to the middle school and high school, where they were able to see just very quick pitches, very high level of what these different audiovisual technologies can do. And just kind of got a quick temperature check from staff about their interests, their curiosities about even being part of the pilot, and really got some very positive feedback. So now it's about recruiting teachers who want to participate in this pilot and be a part of shaping this kind of new vision, this new model. So these are just a couple of slides to give you kind of an idea of what it looked like, some of these steps. So with research, this is a Padlet. This is one of the many tools that our staff have been using all year. So it's a tool where you can kind of just throw up different links and resources and kind of like things and vote things up. So we looked at, I attended MassQ conference virtually, of course, and a number of other members from the Digital Learning Committee did as well. So we saw examples there, looking at tech articles and trends, connecting with the South Shore Tech Directors Network. That's been really, really helpful this year, just getting to know the South Shore technology director community in general. And I especially need to thank the director of the Scituate Public Schools, Richard Long. I talked to him a bit about the different AV technologies that they looked at and chose. And then worked very closely with the ITS team to talk to our different resellers. So Pro AV Systems, CDW, you're going to hear me throw out a couple of these, and just understand from their perspective, what are the trends they're seeing? What are the top brands that we should really be looking at? And here's an example of a Jamboard. So Google Jamboard is another tool that teachers use quite a bit, teachers and students all year. I love Post-its. You will understand that by the end of the presentation. And I love the digital Post-its as well. So a Jamboard is basically, a board, and you can throw a whole bunch of Post-its on it. So they're digital Post-its. So, this is an example of a Future Classrooms workshop that I ran with the Deer Hill staff, and you can see, we just asked the staff to, think about what improvements they'd want to see and just throw up Post-its of different ideas. And then we kind of started to group those together and analyze, what are the trends, what are the ideas, what are the thoughts that are coming out of that. And this is an example of one of the surveys. So asking middle school, high school staff after a PD day, what would you most like to see improved related to technology? And a quality type of teacher's laptop and AV system were the top two. So that really aligns with what we'll be looking at in the pilot. And then the tech trade shows. So these are photos of it taking place that day, May 14th. The top left and right are the interactive boards called by ClearTouch, excuse me. The one in the middle is ViewSonic, and the bottom right is Epson short throw projector, which we actually have a model of in the library. We have a couple of examples of this throughout the district. So from all that research, conversation, kind of some of the demos, these are our goals for the pilot as of right now. Obviously, number one is what are the elements of a consistent upgraded AV model for the classroom? And so we're going to look at all this kind of stuff, short throw projectors versus LCD panels, interactive, fixed, portable, audio enhancements. We've got to test the kind of applications and connectivity that teachers and students will be trying. And of course, looking at, what's the implication for IT, what kind of support, implementation, impact, and what kind of training would we need to even consider rolling this out at a larger scale. And the number two goal is the most important one, right? How does any of this impact student learning? So, with our pilot teachers and with our school leaders, establish some department grade level learning goals. What is the impact of these technologies on student learning? And I put in there, ask the students, because they have to be involved in this pilot as well. So I do see them as playing an integral role and having a voice in this as well. They already on the tech trade show were teaching us stuff and asking questions. It was great. So next steps in July on the 20th and on the 22nd, we're actually partnering with CDW. It doesn't mean that we're moving forward with them in any capacity, but they are able to provide this exercise for free called Blueprint to Design, B2D. And they basically will take our leadership and then our more building-based school leaders and some lead teachers through a design thinking exercise similar to what I ran with the DLC earlier in the year. But we'll be looking at different kinds of learning spaces and learning space research and the different technologies, but also the furniture and the walls and UDL and all of it really, so that we can, as a leadership team, kind of have a bigger vision. While during the pilot, we're looking at a slice of that, the AV technologies, but we're kind of like, thinking bigger Might be seem a little backwards, like maybe we should have done this earlier in the year, but or done this first, but the capital proposal just needed to be in, so we needed to get that in sooner. So so I'm really excited about this. And then in August, CDW will come back with these renderings. So we will literally be able to see what it might look like in the future, you know, should we go this way. Now with design thinking, none of this is final. It's always iterative. So we'll learn about that process and understand that even my paper prototype that I drew based on all the conversations and focus groups earlier in the year, and this is like a combination of all the different ideas. So it's a mess, right? But we would take those paper prototypes and create like a 2D rendering. And then eventually, of course, the 2D rendering could become in real life. So I've mentioned middle school, high school for the tech trade show. The Deer Hill and Osgood did not participate in that yet, but we are definitely going to involve them in the fall. We'll hopefully kick off this pilot and get them on board, get some teachers interested, and then be able to involve them as well. So that was the Innovative Classrooms pilot proposal. The third deliverable is a technology plan review. So we began this in May, and so the left-hand side, kind of in the background, is a snapshot of the existing technology plan. The top right is another tool called Miro, which is a wonderful interactive space used a lot in UX and UI and kind of remote teamwork. So we, again, Post-its, we went through an exercise. We started it, we're finishing up this month, in which as a team, we read through the action steps and the success criteria for each of the benchmarks. So like we've done benchmark 1 and 2, and really we're looking forward. So what is the work that we have left to do in each of these areas? And so brainstorm, what some of those actions might be, talk about what key takeaways there are, what stands out, and what new action items might emerge from this. And then I'll pull that together into some preliminary goals for next year. And as we finish up with the strategic plan, we definitely will need to make sure that we align with that. This technology plan aligns with the strategic plan. So we'll definitely be, revisiting the action items and the success criteria, the benchmarks in the fall. So just some other tech updates in general, what I've been up to this year. I think I've presented professional development, technology professional development opportunities to this committee, and it's been in the Navigator, I think, but worked a lot with edtechteacher.org and Dr. Scollins to coordinate, and Ms. Sarwanka as well, to coordinate different technology professional development opportunities for staff. So we had assistive tech for special education staff and apps and strategies for teachers as they continue working through remote and hybrid. Provided some one-on-one support to teachers. Just either they reached out or I walked in, or I think Mr. McClellan, you were in the mock trial over Zoom, so that's an example. So just kind of trying to be more visible and accessible to staff. I've completed a software inventory and working on the renewals for a lot of the subscriptions. Again, a lot of this is collaborative, so I say I, but I'm working, with a number of team members. There were a number of new software subscriptions that we're going to acquire for teachers, and again, this was really from feedback from them. So things like Pear Deck and Padlet and Edpuzzle that we could get more at a district level that gives us, I guess, a better cost benefit when you go with a district or a site license. And then the next couple with Google, I was able to partner with a new consultant, Amplified IT. They're Google experts basically, but for the back end, more in Google Workspace or Google Apps for Education, it used to be called. Google Workspace for Education implementation. And so it was a wonderful partnership with the ITS team, Ron and Dan and Kyle, to work with Amplified IT who not only did we buy the upgrade license from them, but as a result of that, and the licenses to upgrade our platform, and also an exercise of an audit of our current implementation. So the team and I went through that review process with Amplified IT and identified like some quick wins that they could implement to improve in the back end or to improve the user experience with our Google Apps. The Amplified IT also has a number of tools for IT that they could use if they wanted to, that just kind of makes their life easier in managing Google Workspace. And then there's some considerations for maybe long-term changes, but again, just work really. I commend them for reading a 120-page report, and then us all kind of going through together, and I'm looking forward to hopefully continuing with Amplified IT. I think they were a really great partner. And the last couple, so just working on website content updates. Cassie O'Brien has been really, really helpful, and I thank her very much for her work working through some of the content on the website. And then Lydia and Ashley and Dr. Scollins, we're now in the process of rolling out some surveys to families, already did so for leadership to evaluate like the current experience of the website for a possible kind of facelift, but we'll see. It's all a great exercise just to understand what the current experience is with the website that we have. And then working on the new hire for the middle school, high school instructional technology specialist / computer science teacher, which is really exciting. And then working with Dr. Scollins on possibly a pilot next year of a tool called TeachPoint, which leadership would use to evaluate teachers. It's a software application. It's basically going from current process to using this app. And then I've just been working on getting to know everybody, really. It's been kind of a strange environment, right, to try to form and build relationships, but coming in new. But everyone has been so welcoming and so understanding and answered my crazy questions. And it's just been really great. So I've gotten to know Cohasset Public Schools members, the community, Cohasset, and I had to put in the croissants because I went to French Memories. That almond croissant it's just amazing. So I really appreciate getting to know the town and everybody in it. And thank you all for the welcome. Post-its again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Radden. Any questions for Ms. Radden from the committee? Ashley Caleri.
Thank you very much for that very thorough presentation. I too love a good Post-it, even more so when they're virtual and I don't have to clean them up and they're not.
Good point.
So I really, really love the idea of having, I liked the innovative classroom sort of mock-up of what a classroom might look like. I think it's fantastic to have lots of different kinds of furniture and spaces for students to move around. I feel like having students sit in chairs and rows of desks is, I feel like they would do well to have different environments sprinkled in there. I wonder, have you ever heard of a company, and I may have missed this in the presentation, and have you ever heard of a company called Z-Space?
C-Space, no.
Z as in the last letter of the alphabet. I only bring them up just because I just feel like, I don't think there is such a thing as coincidences. And I happen to learn about them through some work that I'm doing with a Boys and Girls Club in Boston. And they have a platform where students can do more hands-on learning and experiential learning, but in a virtual environment. And so I thought maybe that would also give us an opportunity to give a little bit more trade and vocational options to students, but in a sort of technologically advanced setting. So I just wanted to bring that up just in case it's of interest. No pressure to investigate really, but I just thought I would mention it. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with you on the website. So thanks for your progress on that too.
Oh, thank you. You guys spearheaded that. So I'm just excited to be a part of that.
That's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Caleri. Mr. Kearney, anything for Ms. Radden?
Great presentation. Appreciate the good work and looking forward to another year of some good technology upgrades.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Mrs. Marr?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I have a question about technology, and I think out of all the different areas, we deal with, it's one of the most challenging in the sense that it's always evolving. And I think we've found ourselves now, what you walked into was a situation where we had a technology plan from 5 years ago and we implemented it and we never updated it. So now what we have is outdated and not conducive to today's instruction and learning. So I think one of the biggest questions I would have, and I don't expect an answer, but I think we have to think about this as a district, and maybe Capital might have touched on it with you. I wasn't at every one of the meetings you went to with them, is how do you keep it evolving, and how do you cost that out so that in 5 years we're not obsolete again? And I think that's an important thing for the district to always be looking at going forward.
Yeah. Cost benefit analysis would need to be done, around which technologies we choose and the longevity of them. Just I'm not going to answer the question, of course, in full, but just talking to some of the, resellers, they are talking about 5-10 years out, what will be the norm. So that's, the balance that I think we have to find, we have to strike.
And sometimes it's updating by technology as opposed to by building, because I think some people get in the cycle of, you do a grade level at a time, and by the time the last grade level gets the technology is sort of, passe. So I think just being real tactical in what we do, and making sure that whatever we do is going to last and be upgradable if we need that. So it's very, very important question, Ellen. And not something we can answer right now for sure, but
No, I
always
don't,
on our minds, yeah.
yeah, I don't expect an answer. It was more, a question to think about. And maybe when you get to the point where you're selecting your vendors, and that part of the contract is a testing program, as they have, new things develop, or because things are always going to change. That part of the contract is, well, when we get something new, we give you 2 classrooms to try it out. So that we're always testing and not waiting. Do you follow what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, we could be an innovation school, right? We come here and try out your new tech. Tell us what's coming down the pipeline. Let's try it. Let's make sure
we want to sponsor an innovative mindset for sure. I mean, that was one of the first conversations that Lisa and I had. I love that she believes in that, and that's something that we're trying to do. But you're right, this has to be very purposefully, everything needs to be very thoughtful, in addition to the way we go about working with potential vendors, no doubt.
you get a lot of high marks from Capital if you had that kind of, from the Capital Budget Committee, if you had that kind of caveat in your plan.
And we really appreciate Capital, their funding of what we have for a pilot. I was very appreciative.
Yep.
That's it. Thank you very much, Ms. Radden.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Marr. Ms. St. Ange, anything?
Yes, I'd just like to also compliment your presentation. It's just so great to see, I think for people outside of the classroom to be exposed to so many of the things that we've been using in the classroom this year, like Padlet and Jamboard. It's just fun to see it out, beyond the 9 to 3 classroom hours, which obviously tells that I work in elementary school. Also, I really like that the approach is beyond just the tools, and it's looking at the space and the thinking and the style of work and promoting collaboration. And I think, what we used to call 21st century skills is just how we work now. We don't need to call it that anymore because it's 2021. But it's just great to see that this is a more holistic approach, not just, let's get a smart board and a laptop that's updated. So that's much appreciated. I also really look forward to, next school year, as some of these drawings and sketches and ideas are coming together, having those shared. I just think it's really exciting to think about, just all of the players and what kids and what teachers and other staff are thinking about what would work. I think as a part of that innovation and creative thinking, it'll just be exciting for us to see, maybe a summary
Yeah, that'd
of
be
what
great.
that is. And I just truly appreciate all of your hard work. And I'm excited that we on our communication subcommittee get to be working with you pretty closely. So thank you for everything.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Radden, for presenting that information to us tonight and being here and waiting all that time. I know you had to wait for a while to give that presentation, so thank you for your patience with us tonight.
All right.
Unless there are any other questions, I think Ms. Radden's off the hook. Dr. Sullivan, if you're all right with that.
I am, and I just want to reassert that what I'm really looking forward to is the continued collaboration from actually the team that's on the screen right here, because they're working really well together to lead all of these initiatives, and just very excited for that to continue, because I think we can do a lot of great things in the district. So Lisa's a big piece of the puzzles, and I'm also very excited. We're going to have and because of your generosity, we're going to have a instructional special and technology specialist at the middle and the high school. So for me, it kind of completes that triangle. We have Cassie O'Brien at the elementary, we'll have this person at the middle and high school, and Lisa working with all of them in a coaching model. And I thank Dr. Scollins for some of that vision, but that's a great model. It's going to pay off so many ways in this district, and I can't wait for that fuse to be lit. It's very exciting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Have a great
Thank you
night.
very much.
Before we move on, Dr. Sullivan, I think that probably concludes your report, but before we move on, I just got a comment from one of the members of the community related to the K tuition issue that we had raised earlier on your update. And it's not on the agenda, so we really can't deliberate on it, but I do want to encourage participation and just sort of address this family member's comment. This is from Jenna Cunningham, who lives on Hill Street. She states and asks, I apologize for the lateness of this question regarding the kindergarten tuition discussion tonight. But now that it has been confirmed on the record that last year's families received $980, will be revised for this year and not incorrectly capped at $500 per last meeting. So to just reiterate what happened in the last meeting, we did approve reimbursement up to and including $500. And that was upon the recommendation of our Director of Finance and Operations, that is something that we could currently afford. That said, it is fair because I did inaccurately state that it was $500, and I was operating under complete incomplete or inaccurate information when I said that. So there is obviously disparity. Whether the disparity is $480, whether that's what the prorated or per diem, amount would be calculated out to, whatever it is, I guess, without deliberating, maybe Mrs. Owen, you could just explore whether or not there was any way to, give any additional, because, given that we were able to find some way to apply ESSER II funds to this, maybe you could just simply explore whether or not there's any way to give any additional amount. And then if there is, we can put it back on the agenda for discussion, whether or not that's warranted, whether or not it's prudent, whether or not it's, fiscally a wise decision. But at this juncture, I mean, I don't even know that you would be able to answer that question. I don't want to put you on the spot to do that. So perhaps you could just explore that. What Ms. Cunningham raises, whether or not, we can offer anything additional, more than $500, over and above $500. Is that possible?
Certainly, I can certainly look into it and see. I mean, do some research. Right, 500 was what I knew we could bring forward, but I can definitely go back and do some more research.
Okay, and Ms. Cunningham followed up with, respectfully, there's been a lot of community involvement in securing an adequate refund commensurate with the loss of services. There exists a petition among K families that points to significant concern and personal impact Ray Cohasset regarding Cohasset charging in full this year during an extremely challenging year. This is 100% a COVID relief issue, and it should not be inaccurately capped at $500. Families would really appreciate this issue resolved as soon as possible, in line with other nearby towns. So we understand, Ms. Cunningham. I have seen the petition. I understand, and I've received emails from other parents and family members as well, as has the rest of the committee. We know it is an important issue to several families. It's not a matter, first of all, whenever we're comparing ourselves to other school districts, that's really, it's usually fairly unhelpful, because districts vary widely from, you know, enrollment, resources, everything. It's really an apples to oranges comparison. But that said, we understand the gist of your beef, for lack of a better phrase. And it's less about whether or not we want to give more money, and more about or whether it's even equitable and in line with a previous reimbursement, and more about whether or not we can actually afford it, and whether or not we have, you know, the money to do that. And I know that people probably feel that, you know, we get these grants and this is just a huge amount of money that's just like a slush fund and we can apply it to whatever we want. But in reality, there are a lot of legitimate costs that demand those resources. So we will, as Ms. Owen stated, she will look into it. And if there's anything we can do, it's not that we don't want to give anyone more money. That's not what it is. It's whether or not we can. So Mrs. Owen just said she's going to look into it and she will report back. But I don't want to get too much in this because it's not on the agenda tonight. We were just making corrections because I wanted to make sure that I was clear that it wasn't $500, it was $980. And I know that Dr. Sullivan wanted to clarify on the enrollment issue because that was a little confusing as presented last time. So I know that you and perhaps other families may, or yours and perhaps other families may remain frustrated about this, but I promise you that the school committee in the central office is doing the best they can with this. Okay, so moving on to the next agenda item is the special education update from Mrs. Sirwanka, our Director of Student Services.
Evening, everybody. So this evening's presentation, as I had indicated last time, is going to be our annual CPAC presentation, where we talk about what has gone on this year and a little bit about what we see for the future for next year. So I'm going to request that Dr. Sullivan please promote Tara Valungas, our CPAC president, from an attendee to a panelist to join us.
On our way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I sent out packets. Hello, Tara. So I'd like to introduce Tara Valungas to everyone. It's nice to have you with us.
Welcome, Tara.
So I did have packets sent out to the school committee members. One of them contained, which Tara and I went over, our CPAC meetings and events for this year, which I'll refer to a little bit as I talk through this past year. I also included in that the annual CPAC basic rights presentation, which we need to give to parents, which I presented this year. And also the DESE guidance on CPAC, just for kind of your information about, you know, the role and guidelines around CPACs in Massachusetts. It certainly was a very interesting year to kind of connect with CPAC and get to know them. When we started the year, there obviously, you know, we were in COVID restrictions. The way that I really had to get to know everybody was via Zoom. Kelly McGee was heading up the CPAC at that time. And, you know, she was very gracious in trying to kind of get me up to speed and get me to know everyone and things like that. But we kicked off the year finally in August with a Meet the Director meeting. And at that point in time, we were having monthly meetings.
Barbara, would you like me to share on the screen the document or just talk over it?
No, it's really not a very interesting document. I've just handed it out to the school committee members to see it. I'm just going to kind of talk through what we did this year, but thank you for that. And we kind of, you know, got through, if you will, our CPAC meetings in a little bit of a different way. I know CPAC's really used to really being able to run things live and connect with people and have these presentations and speakers, and that's kind of where all of us who do this work live. So we got used to this new format and getting to know each other, and everyone was just really very wonderfully welcoming. And I think we've had really just a very positive year together and gone through a lot of changes within the CPAC itself this year and built together, and really looking forward to continuing that next year. We very quickly, as soon as I think October, kind of bumped up to 2 meetings a month. People were really interested in having those, and you can imagine and you can see through some of the documents that I shared that an awful lot of our topics discussed were COVID related. They were kind of remote learning related. They were, all about kind of the DESE updates and the district updates and answering those questions. And we really made sure, and I know people were very appreciative of, the constant pushing out of updates that we gave. And then in January, we had a shift, and we had Tara voted in as our new president, which we were very happy to do, and some of our liaisons to our schools. And that was kind of when I would say, Tara, we kind of shifted in CPAC too. And we kind of came out a little bit of, all of the COVID updates, if you will, and kind of started really looking again at CPAC as CPAC. And it was a little bit of a kind of normalizing experience at that point in time. We started looking ahead to coffees. We started having some virtual speakers, and it started feeling a little bit more like ourselves in our business, if you will. And some of the things that we did was we had Lisa Radden, who just left us, join one of our CPACs as the Director of Technology and Digital Learning, and really present a lot of information to our parents around assistive technology and some of the technology things going on in the district. Dr. Scollins joined us a couple of times to talk about the Student Opportunity Act and talk about our literacy push in the district. I know that we also had a couple of meetings, Tara, that you really were able to kind of orchestrate and put out there. We had a reading presentation that was virtual by Abigail Sullivan, but you were also able to have an in-person parent coffee yourself, which was great. Talk about really getting back to normalcy with the CPAC. And through it all, at different points in time, team chairs would join in, and we had an introduction of our new elementary team chair. We continued to talk about ESY, about summer learning, about how we were ending up this year, about some things that we have on future agendas in terms of our programming and things like that. And we've really had, I think, very kind of an unusual year, but a very informative and successful year. And it really has been just wonderful to come together as a team and work. And I want to share that Cassie Muir was just voted in as our Vice President of CPAC for next year. And I'm going to let Tara talk a little bit about how we really have kind of firmed up what CPAC is going to look like for next year. And we're very excited to look forward to that. And I'm going to let her talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Barbara. Yes, we're excited to hopefully get back to as normal as we can. I think that is great. And what we're planning to do is, well, I just want to say CPAC's focus, for people who don't really know what CPAC is, I think there's 3 key facets. We support parents of children on IEPs and 504s, or parents who are wondering whether their children need to be on IEPs or 504s. So there's definitely a support component there. We're also educating parents in the community on special education issues, and they could be reading, they could be behavioral, executive function, all sorts of many issues. And then we also act as the liaison with the administration. So kind of a channel to get information from the parents to the school and vice versa, the school to the parents. So those are our 3 main goals of CPAC. And we're excited for next year. We're planning to have a schedule where every other month we'll have a parent meetup or coffee in person where we can just discuss about issues that are relevant to us. And that's a great way to meet new members in particular who have questions. And then on the opposite month, we will have presentations. And then every month we're planning to do our general meeting. And that's where we discuss updates with Barbara.
Mhm. And I know in those meetings next year, those monthly general meetings, this year we really left them pretty open in terms of what did people really need to discuss, what did they want to discuss, what was going on with COVID, things like that for the better portion of the year. You know, next year, really kind of, I have some thoughts that I'll get together with Tara and Cassie on in kind of, you know, topic oriented ways. You know, when the basic rights is going to be presented, when we're going to do some work perhaps with, you know, an elementary team chair and talking about special education programming at the elementary schools, then with our secondary team chair and what programming looks like at the secondary schools in terms of what we have in terms of new initiatives as well as existing programs. Perhaps sometimes have people in to discuss things like the school psychologists could come to a meeting and discuss testing. And we could certainly set up an agenda of meetings like that for my portion of them, as well as obviously always be open to questions and to, you know, moving forward with thoughts and advice from the CPAC members. So that is a bit of an overview of, you know, what we accomplished over the past year in CPAC and really where we're looking to head as kind of a little bit of a new group and forging ahead and hopefully what feels like a more typical year for CPAC.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Cerwanka and Ms. Valungas. Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments on school committee? Ms. Cleary, do you have any questions or comments?
I would just like to thank you both for being here. Tara, it's so good to see you. And I think it is so exciting that you and Cassie are going to be taking CPAC into this very crucial year that we have coming up. And I look forward to interacting with you both, hopefully regularly in that capacity. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Cleary. Mr. Kearney, do you have any comments?
I'd just like to say thank you as well. It's been a tough year, and I think we're doing a good job, and it's nice to hear and a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Mrs. Marr?
I'll echo my colleagues in expressing thanks. I do have a question. I don't know if it's related to CPAC. Dr. Scollins, you might want to chime in. I think at our last meeting, we had some questions from parents about ESY and the summer learning program overlapping and selecting one, and that ESY was really targeted towards students at most risk for regression. Am I remembering that correctly? And so my question is, do we have an ability to extend or the ESY program? Isn't it one afternoon a week or 2 afternoons a week?
So if I can open kind of the answering to it, Leslie, to save your voice a little bit, and I'll answer as much as I can, and then you can chime in. So the extended school year summer program really is a special education summer program and is individually based on the amount of regression that students may exhibit, and that data is taken across the course of the year. And then the amount of recoupment time that they might require. And if they meet both of those criteria, then extended school year is offered. And the extended school year program runs 4 mornings a week for 5 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Students participate in as much of it as is recommended by their IEP team. And that is based on that data and that need. The summer learning opportunity or the summer learning program, which Dr. Scollins referenced earlier in the evening when we were talking about the grants and some of the summer learning that we are doing, is a general education program to address, you know, some of those gaps that students might exhibit. And we're focusing really on the reading, the math, and the social emotional in that. And there are several 2-week sessions of that running. And one of them, since our last meeting, we have been able to open up an afternoon session for that. That always was open to students who are on IEPs, even if ESY was recommended for you. In opening up the afternoon session, it opens up a little bit more flexibility for participation.
Okay,
But I just want you to know that not every grade level is going to have an afternoon session. We just don't have the staff to do anything like that. So we're doing our best to make it as open as possible. I think the biggest issue is that we will be able to accept everyone, which is really nice, which was really kind of our hope, was that we would be able to do that. So we are able to do that, and hopefully everyone will be able to take advantage. But there could be some overlap. There wasn't much we could do about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marr. Mrs. St. Ange, do you have any comments?
Only to express thanks. It's been a tough year, and I know that you have worked so hard, and it sounds like the plan for this upcoming year is going to be great. And I hope to be able to actually join in some of those meetings. Sometimes do you alternate times? Do they have during the workday and then later in the evening ones as well? Like I know PSO does that. Maybe.
So this year we were pretty flexible
Yeah.
with times. I think we actually started on Wednesdays, and then we shifted to Thursdays, and then we shifted to Tuesdays to try to accommodate people. But I know in other districts that I've been in, we have not met solely during the day. We have had some meetings at night, and certainly that's a conversation that we could have to allow as many people as possible to participate in CPAC.
Yeah, it's just always nice to have the option on occasion to have something that's outside of the workday.
Absolutely.
And I know that you work hard to include everyone you can, and it's sometimes hard to make everyone happy. But thank you for everything you're doing. It sounds like you have a great lineup for this coming year.
Thank you, Ms. St. Ange. Thank you, Ms. Cerwanka and Ms. Valungas. Student services, CPAC, it's a hugely important facet of the district operations. And I know that, this year was obviously especially difficult for anyone with a learning difference, never mind, the general ed students, but certainly those with learning differences. So to that end, I think we've, informally discussed perhaps having a school committee meeting that's largely dedicated to student services and special education this summer, so we can address sort of some of the learning gaps that we're seeing from the past year, and some things that we can consider to improve upon our student services offerings as we enter into the hopefully the next full routine normal school year. I don't think we've actually set a date for that, but at some point this summer before the next academic year starts up. I think Dr. Sullivan, we were talking about that informally. Isn't that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's very exciting. Something we're very looking forward to is really kind of, showing everything that took place this year during COVID, all of the supports and services that were offered and taken advantage of, and the great success that they had. And like you said, also always looking with an eye to improve and what else can we do moving forward.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions, then I would just thank you both so much for your time and your patience in getting to this point in the agenda. Thank you. So with that, unless there are other comments, we'll move on to the school committee section of the agenda.
I just want to say a quick thank you to
Sure.
Ms.
Yes, of course.
Valungas for her work. And CPAC is such a wonderful organization to be involved with. Never mind, to lead. That's a commitment, and I know we're very much looking forward to the continued collaboration and also communication. Very important that we communicate appropriately to you and you do to us as well, so we can keep that collaboration going. So very excited for it. I think we've all learned from this year to move forward and to make Cohasset an even better place. So thank you for everything you're doing with that as well. That's all, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. Okay, so moving on to the school committee section. The first agenda item is the in-person school committee meetings. I just put this on the agenda because obviously we're coming to the end of the state of emergency, and we're going to need to consider coming back in person. I know that many people in the community have expressed a desire to see us back in person. I think that people feel like they're better heard, and I know that people are frustrated with the Q&A feature. Although I will note that participation levels were much, much lower when we had in-person meetings. So to that end, I think that it's incumbent upon us to try and continue to incorporate Zoom or some similar streaming platform, even when we are in person, so that we can encourage participation, because honestly, the participation has absolutely inarguably lent itself to more constructive decisions being made. And I think it led to, I think I'm very proud of how we handled the pandemic. And I think we made some informed decisions, and that 100% involved community feedback and input. So it's really something that I would really not want to see lost. That will be probably up to the next chairperson of the school committee, but I know Mrs. Marr that you won't necessarily be concerned about coming in person or not, but nevertheless, I thought it was something that we should probably address, because I think it's on a lot of people's minds what we're going to do. I don't know if anyone has any suggestions or ideas about when we come back in person, whether we finish out the academic year remotely and then try and have the meetings in person in summer. I don't know. I don't have any particular plan, but I wanted to address this, and the only way we can talk about something is to put on the agenda and talk about it in a meeting. So, Mrs. Cleary, do you have any thoughts on this?
I do. I think I am in favor of returning to some sort of hybrid situation. I think I don't know if it was in like the Attorney General's Division of Open Meeting email or what, but I think I saw something about the governor wanting public bodies, or the AG wanting public bodies to continue to have patience with them as they work to improve the ability of open meeting to function in a sort of hybrid setting. So I don't know if I feel like I saw that they encouraged us to continue until the summer, maybe, or something. I don't know. Did you read that? You seem to be nodding your head.
Well, I think that, what I thought you were getting at was they were indicating that sort of similar to what I just said, and they were indicating that it would be wise to continue to allow members to participate remotely, during the sort of interim time. In other words, it wouldn't be mandatory that everyone's in person, that, they'd allow for remote participation. And we've actually done that in the past, even before this. People have sometimes called in and been on the speakerphone. I know we've done that before, actually, with you, Mrs. Cleary. I think we did that at one point during our first year. But that's what I thought you were getting at. I don't know. I was nodding my head at the beginning because that's where I thought you were going. But I'm not sure specifically what you're talking about.
So the guidance, if I could just chime in, I know that it does allow some forgiveness on this through September, as what I understand. However, I should mention also, Chair McClellan, and I may not have had a chance to tell you this, but I know in speaking with Ron Menard, and he's obviously working with other town groups too, that are in the same kind of conundrum we're in. There are some devices and methodologies that they're looking at that I think I've asked them to obviously keep us in the loop, that might pay off for us down the road as we start to merge what was good from this format with what I know we all want, which is, some in-person time as well. So it might be a nice merging. So I'll keep you on that.
All right. Well, Mrs. Cleary, I know you sort of finished up, but do you have any opinion as to, when we might sort of meet, at least in a hybrid format, basically inviting people to come in person if they like?
I don't. I obviously will have a difficult time actually being in person for a bit, but no, I don't feel like it's too soon or anything.
Okay. Mr. Kearney, you got any thoughts on this?
It's interesting because, and I'm happy to report Cohasset won their last softball game today, varsity. Very proud of our girls. That said, I was able to with you guys and see the game in a nice warm car. I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna miss that. I thought that some of the opportunities were well informed, because you would be able to put us together real quickly. And I commend you, Craig, because I think the communication was really good. I thought we answered almost, I think one meeting, I think we were over to 60 questions. So that said, I don't really know if we could do that in person. There's a lot of pros and cons to this. You know, I think I'm going to have to go out and buy some suits or something. It's been easy to, you know, basically go to a meeting and shut it off. So, you know, I got mixed feelings. I know that people want to come in and see us as well. And you know, I'd like to see all you guys. So, you know, I don't know. I also think, you know, what can we learn from this going forward? Like what I think we got more, like you were saying earlier, Craig, about more participation because people felt like they were heard. So I'm good with either or. But I also want to mention if we could have subcommittees maybe still via Zoom, because I think it was really important that in some of these, especially the finance committees, that we had the whole committee there. And I know it'd be really difficult to do, knowing all our schedules, but having the 5 of us at a finance committee just shows strength in numbers. And I just thought that we were able to really communicate with the town really well. And I just would like to see that continue. And I'm not driving, my wife's driving, just FYI.
All right. Thanks for that disclaimer, Mr. Kearney. Okay, thank you, Mr. Kearney. Mrs. Marr, I know, like I said, I understand that, you know, you won't be directly impacted by this, but obviously, you know, as everyone stated, your input's valuable, and I'd be very interested in what your thoughts were on this, especially from a procedural point of view. I mean, you know, you're very familiar with the rules and all, and I'd be interested in what you have to say on this.
Thank you. I think if you have the technology, a return with a hybrid would be important. I agree. We have a lot more people watching. We never had the ability to see if people were watching on 143 TV at home. We did pack, people come out to school committee meetings when there's something controversial or something upsetting, and the room does get packed. And I think we've seen that here as well, is when there are big issues that impact a lot of people participate. And when it's more regular business, there's a little less passion about it. So there are a lot of districts that are looking at it right now. How do they do it? Some have tested different modes of putting you know, laptops in front of everybody so they can be Zoomed, and then having microphones so that they can be heard in a live format, but also broadcasting. I'd encourage you to get with, you know, continue to work with Ms. Radden and Mr. Menard and 143 TV on how to execute a hybrid, because I do think it's important to get back to in-person meetings. That if you're in person will also alleviate the need to do a roll call vote for every single item, which you have to do even if one member is out electronically. But if all 5 members are there in person, not everything has to be a roll call.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Marr. Mrs. St. Ange?
I think it makes sense to start to plan our reentry into in-person meeting. I guess I just think it needs to be a calculated move so that we can do it well and with as few technological glitches as possible. I think we've all gone through plenty of technical difficulties in the past 14, 15 months, and it would be nice when trying to include the community to do so smoothly. So I think, you know, what Mrs. Marr was mentioning about, you know, making sure there's microphones and the technology has been tested, just so that we can ensure that that communication works both ways. That will be an important element. That being said, I think it makes sense, you know, in my mind, I don't know why, but just like maybe we shoot for August, because we round out this year and then start the new, I know the new committee starts next time, but I feel like August feels like the new year. I don't know, in my mind.
Okay.
We have a New Year's party.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. It's funny you say August, because that's what I was sort of thinking, right? Because the district, so we're still sort of finishing up this year,
Mhm.
and then they'll have to do a lot of work to wrap up that year. And I think it's fair to give the leadership team, in addition to us, some time to, like you said, make a calculated decision, make sure everything's squared away in terms of technology, that we have all the capabilities and resources in place. So we're not trying to execute this sort of, prematurely. I think August is appropriate. I was hoping we could maybe shoot for the first meeting in August, because then we're coming together, well before the school year's actually starting, getting everyone used to that format before we get going. And also gives us like, 2 meetings or so to work out any sort of wrinkles that we might experience. I'm sure we will experience some obstacles in sort of rolling this out. So how does everyone, I know, Ellen, that you're not necessarily, vested in it, but maybe as a member who will be, I know, continuously participating in this, you can sort of chime in. Is everyone, I mean, we don't need to take a vote, but like, is everyone comfortable with like an August sort of goal for the return, for like a hybrid return, so we can be in person, but also we can maintain some sort of remote participation? I mean, even like today, like Ellen said, like Mrs. Marr said, a night like tonight, I bet you no one would have been in the room, in the community room. But we have 4 attendees on the Zoom, and I don't know how many watching on Facebook, but I know a lot of people utilize that. And even if it's just the 4 on Zoom, that's 4 more people than would ordinarily be in the room, and that's important. So, and that's been like the minimum amount of participation that we've had when we're online. So it's really important. So is everyone comfortable with like an early August goal? Does it sound all right to everyone?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that works. I mean, if we wanted to do like a daytime dry run, I'd be happy to help out, because that's the time of year I'm available.
All right.
So I can help in that way.
That sounds like a good idea too. And I didn't want to, I know Lisa Radden was updating on it, sort of, her whole overview year. I didn't want to like touch on this. Obviously she's going to be implicated in this, but I thought that we could just wait, sort of have an informal discussion today, and then we'll involve her in sort of the, the planning and the, back channel planning sort of all this, with Dr. Sullivan. I'm sure he'll be able to manage that with her. So, all right, so that's what we'll shoot for, just so everyone's sort of on notice. I just wanted to, discuss it here, raise it. It's obviously going to be the, I think the prerogative of the new chair as to exactly how that's rolled out, but I think that's a good goal. So, all right, thank you all for giving your input on that. I think it's something that everyone wanted to know about, or at least a good number of the community members wanted to. They were interested about what our position was on that. I've received a few emails. So moving on, School Facilities Committee. I did reach out to, though late and just tonight, in advance of this topic, to select select board chair, excuse me, Diane Kennedy, to just inquire as to where we were in that process. I haven't heard back yet, but she's always responsive. I'm sure she's just busy. So I'll expect a more substantive update on that in the near future. It's again my hope that in July that committee is actually meeting. We're sitting down for the first time in July. So that's my expectation. Mrs. Marr.
Yeah, so I have a protocol question on this. So as the bylaw is written, each one of the 3 entities, the select board, the town moderator, and the school committee, appoint 3 members. And each of those 3 members, there's one for a 3-year term, one for a 2-year term, and one for a 1-year term. And so far we haven't, other than you and Mr. Carney, we haven't appointed anyone as a school committee. We haven't voted on anyone, and we haven't designated whether you or Mr. What length of term each of you is serving.
That's true. What we didn't do is articulate how long each member was serving. That's a good point. There was a 3rd nominee, Mrs. Marr. That was Kathleen Siglarski Burns. She was the first person to apply for it.
Okay.
She's an attorney and an elementary parent, who has sat and I think still sits on the Osgood Council. And Mr. Kearney and I, both sort of volunteered for it because, we were only met with 2 other options that were given to the moderator and the select board. However, since that time, my understanding is several additional applicants or applications have come in, and that's what I have to work out with Diane Kennedy. But to your point, you're right. You're absolutely right. We did not specify the terms. So we can certainly do that now. We had the 3 nominees. I am more than happy to be the 1-year person or the 3-year person, whatever everyone wants. I don't know. We can do that right now. I mean, it is appropriate. I think you're right to raise that, Mrs. Marr. So I don't know if there's a motion to sort of nominate it in a certain way. Again, it's Kathleen Siglarski Burns is the 3rd nominee from the school committee, and then it's Mr. Kearney and myself. Those were the 3.
Do you know what Ms. Burns' desire is in terms of how long she wants to serve?
I don't know that, and that's the one sort of question I had as I was talking. I wouldn't want to lock her in. Poor Mrs. Burns just she volunteered for this. I know she's really capable and willing to pitch in any way, but I don't know if she's willing. She was looking for a 3-year commitment.
Perhaps once all the applicants are in, maybe then you look at everybody's time and talent and you allocate it then. But I'm just saying, as a point of order, each serving member has to be put in for a certain period of time. So you'll just want to address that at some point before you commence.
Yeah, I think that's a sensible way of doing it. Wait until we sort of have the 9 nominees, and then the school committee can revisit, which, then we'll be able to sort of directly ask people what they're looking for, and we'll have a little bit more more informed decision in terms of what the term limits are. We want to lock someone in for 3 years if they're just not looking for that. But certainly would want them to continue for a year if they're looking for that, So thanks for raising that, Mrs. Marr, because I likely would have, although my feeling is the town moderator probably would have reminded us of this, but I appreciate that. And it was probably, more appropriate to do at the time we nominated them, but well, I neglected to do that. So thank you for raising that. So again, no real substantive update other than the fact that there have been additional applications, and I know that Diane Kennedy has been in touch with the town moderator in order to lock down their nominations. Next agenda item is the other subcommittee reports and liaison position reports. So if there are any, you can just hopefully briefly summarize, Mrs. Cleary.
So the policy subcommittee is meeting on Monday, and then the communications subcommittee will meet the Monday following. I think I got that right. Did I get that right, Mrs. St. Ange?
I think we're actually skipping a week because Mrs. Radden has a family commitment, but
right.
But yeah. In that order, just another week apart. Yes.
Thank you. And also the Cohasset Pride Project is going to be at the farmers market tomorrow and at the library on Saturday, so that people who've ordered their flags and signs can go pick them up. And there's also a fabulous flag display outside the library and an explanation on the library's website of what each of those pride flags means. So that's exciting. Very excited about our crosswalks again. And also we're going to be showing Loving, the movie, on the Saturday the 12th, which is the anniversary of that Supreme Court decision. And it's going to be an outdoor movie on the football field. Very excited. Come one, come all. The COVID restrictions have been relaxed, so that's exciting. We get to have as many people as we'd like, but we would love it if people want and are able to reserve their space on Eventbrite. There's a link, there's a social media post that's been going around, and I'll send that also to you, Dr. Sullivan, and you can maybe give that to the leadership team, and everyone can include that in their newsletters if they're okay with that. That'd be great.
Be glad to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cleary. Mr. Kearney, any updates?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell the administration and inform the public of how good the graduation was. I know it was a lot of work. It was just nice to be outside and very formal and just a beautiful day. And I was just so proud to be part of that. Also looking forward to getting back to normal. It's nice to see on the softball field the kids without the masks on and really enjoying each other. And you know, it's just nice to see that. Again, I was mentioning it earlier of this, just the kids getting to be with their friends, and I think that's a big part of their mental health. And it's just nice to see.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kearney. Mrs. Marr, do you have any updates?
Do I have any updates? Well, Mrs. St. Ange and I went to a town meeting, which at this point is old news, but it went well. The budget passed, all of our capital items passed, a little over $1.8 million, which is pretty significant. I concur with Mr. Carney. Graduation was great. And I would recommend for those of you who couldn't be there to, and Dr. Sullivan, I don't know if Principal Scott can get it, but the valedictorian speech was amazing. And it talked about, I don't want to give away what she talked about, but it can resonate with adults and with kids. And I just think it's a good read. She did a phenomenal job. Truly heartfelt. And if you're interested, if anyone's interested, I'm sure there's still copies around. You can get a copy. It was pretty terrific. Let's see what else. So because this is my last meeting, I finished my goal. Ashley, Mrs. Colery very kindly gifted me with a book on Juneteenth, which I have read as part of our diversity goal and initiative. And it was moving, it was witty, it was eye-opening. It was stuff I never learned. And I will gift this back to the central office so that they have a copy. But it was really good. And you know, simple things like how long Juneteenth has been celebrated in Texas with fireworks and cookouts and barbecues like we do, you know, Labor Day or Patriots Day, you know, up here in Massachusetts. And the fact that it's just coming out to the nation so many decades later is kind of amazing, considering it's been going on for so long. So thank you, Mrs. Colery, for the great recommendation. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Goal achieved on that one. That's it. I would just suggest to the committee that maybe at your next meeting, I don't know if it's on your agenda, but you'll have to look at your year end, Ms. Owen, your year end surplus or final budget numbers to see what, if anything's left over. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marr. Mrs. St. Ange?
I don't have any committee updates, but I have a couple questions. And since we're in the comments section, I figure I can ask them. Is that appropriate?
Sure.
First question is it at the next meeting that we make the schedule for the next year of school committee meetings? I was just looking at the calendar. Yes. Okay. My other question is related to the borrowed Chromebooks that are out in the community. And I just wasn't sure if there was going to be communication about how and when to return those, just because I'm, you know, have two at my house and I thought, I wonder how everyone's going to get those back. Yeah. That's all.
That's a great question. So Lisa Ratton is handling that with IT. So you'll be getting information soon about it. You can always have them dropped off, Lydia, though, if you want.
Yeah. It's
oh yeah,
I mean, we only got a few weeks, so it'll be coming out shortly, maybe in my newsletter too.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I'd drop it off. I just thought if we could make sure that there's a message sent out to remind everyone about that equipment.
Correct.
Thank you.
Good point.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. The only thing I want to touch on was the superintendent's evaluation. I had sent out to all of you the superintendent eval form. I have yet to receive any back. So please do that when you can, because I need to compile them, and it takes a little time, and I want to make sure to do that. And Ellen, obviously, you know, I want your input on that. You know, we need your evaluation as well. So just a reminder, no huge deal. I set a little bit of an earlier deadline than Mrs. Marr had last year, so we're in good shape. But please try and get to that when you can.
I just want to mention, I do have those binders here. If it's not that you have to come in and see them, but if they're helpful, you're certainly welcome to. They're just sitting here on my desk.
The binders Dr. Sloan refers to as the evidence of his goals and
Yes, it's the evidence of all my goals.
what he's talking about. So welcome to drop by Central Office and grab those if they aid you in your evaluation of him. Next is the approval of meeting minutes. We do have 2 sets of minutes to approve. Those are the minutes for the October 28th and the December 2nd school committee meetings. Mrs. Marr, they were emailed to us by Lydia. Okay, you looked like you were looking for them in your packet and you didn't see them.
No, I've got 'em.
Okay, so let's just start with Mrs. Cleary. Do you have any comments or corrections or revisions or edits to the, let's take them one at a time. What is the first one? October 28th, 2021 meeting?
I do not.
Okay, this was not the 2021 meeting. It was 2020, October 28th, 2020 meeting. But I bet you still don't. That probably didn't change anything for you because October 28th
Still don't.
hasn't happened yet. Okay, thank you. Mr. Kearney, do you have any corrections to the 10/28/20 meeting minutes?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Marr, did you see anything that you had any suggestions about?
Yes, page 3, under school committee comments and communication. As Mr. Carney stated that there is a capital budget subcommittee meeting, should be finance and facilities.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Marr.
That's it.
Okay. Mrs. St. Ange, any revisions or edits or comments on the 10/28/20 meeting minutes? I guess not, because you,
No, I haven't noticed any further, and I just updated what Mrs. Marr said, so.
okay. All right. So turning to, we'll do the votes in a second. Turning to the 12/2/20 meetings. Mrs. Cleary, do you have any revisions or comments about the December 2nd, 2020 meeting minutes?
I do not.
Mr. Kearney, how about you?
I do not.
Mrs. Marr, did you find anything?
No.
Mrs. St. Ange, I'm guessing you didn't because you wrote them or revised them. I didn't see anything here either. So okay, so we will do it one at a time. Roll call vote. Motion to approve the 10/28/2020 meeting minutes.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion made, I think by, was that Mrs. St. Ange first?
Mrs. Marr.
It was Mrs. Marr, I'm sorry. Okay, and Paul, Mr. Kearney, I'll take that as a second.
Yes.
All in favor, Mrs. Cleary,
Aye.
Mr. Kearney,
Aye.
Mrs. Marr,
Aye.
Mrs. St. Ange.
Aye.
Aye, Craig McClellan, motion unanimously carries. Those meeting minutes are approved with the addition that Mrs. Marr made. As to the December 2nd, 2020 meeting minutes, is there any motion on the floor to approve those meeting minutes as written?
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Cleary. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Marr. All in favor, Mrs. Cleary,
Aye.
Mr. Kearney,
Aye.
Mrs. Marr,
Aye.
Mrs. St. Ange.
Aye.
Aye, Craig McClellan. That motion unanimously carries. So those meeting minutes are also approved. And I know, Mrs. St. Ange, you mentioned that there will be more meeting minutes coming at us in the near future.
Yes,
Okay.
that is true.
So moving on, I do not have any topics that weren't reasonably anticipated by me within 48 hours of the meeting. And there is a reason to move into executive session. I'm not sure if we're ripe for it yet, though. So I think it's probably prudent to wait until next time to do that. And that's what we'll do. And so with that, Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:51 PM?
So moved.
Appropriately made by Mrs. Marr as her last meeting. Motion seconded by
Mrs. Cleary.
Mrs. Colery. All in favor? Mrs. Colery.
Aye.
Mr. Kearney.
Aye.
Mrs. Marr in her last vote.
Aye.
Mrs. St. Ange.
Aye.
Aye, Craig McClellan. That motion unanimously carries. Thank you all, and congratulations, Ellen Marr. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
You got it, Ellen.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Mrs.
Ellen.
Marr.
Bye.
Thank you, Ellen.
Bye, everyone.